Roadshow or financial modelling session, seeing we're not on the road anymore, that we're going to plan to have before the geothermal procurement list for this year is finalised. So welcome to that. It's been a funny old thing because we went around the whole nation and modelled did models for everybody, but we got so much response and we got extra technology in there that we've developed and kept on developing the model. So each one has turned out to be a slight adventure in its own right. But there we are. For those that are new, I've set it to record, so it is recording in case the video is useful for the website. If you don't want to appear, just turn your camera off. And it would be nice if you're not asking a question, and there'll be plenty of chances to hopefully for you to ask questions, which you can either put in the chat or you can unmute yourself then. But it'd probably be helpful to have the thing off when you're not wanting to be heard. So welcome to the roadshow. We'll start. It's a long session because it's a roadshow and it's meant to be a workshop, and it was designed to happen over desks with everybody with their own computers and all the rest of it, which is kind of what's happening now. But of course we can't we can't lean over your shoulder and point at things to you directly. So that's kind of where we're at. So welcome to that. It's NHPower Roadshow. The idea is to help you make decisions about decarbonisation, to get a financial model that contrasts the options available to you. So I would like to just check, has everybody on the call got a model of one sort or another? Bearing in mind the model has developed, so you might have version 1, 2, 3 or 4, but have you got a model? And it probably would be useful if you've got it with you. So has anybody not got a model, just in case something's got lost in email? Well, you can say when you introduce yourself, so I'll go around you in a second. So I'm going to, in a second, ask you to just introduce yourself and say what you hope to get from today's session, and Becca and I will listen and make some notes and attempt to pick it up as we go along. So I see it. Okay. So Adadeo, do you want to just introduce yourself briefly and say what you're after? And then the next one on my list, Aisa Leash, sorry, my glasses should be stronger. Have we lost him? Did I give him the kiss of death? Elsa, I think I've got it right the third time. Elsa, do you want to introduce yourself and say what you'd like to get from today?
Hi, Clive. Yeah, I just joined for some information gathering purposes because we're not really at a stage where we're submitting any kind of application or at that mature side. So I asked if I could just join the discussion or join or listen to see sort of what I can take back to our green group. So I hope that's okay.
That's brilliant. Lovely to have you. So I hope,
Thank you.
I hope we do what you need to do. Yeah, okay. You might want to mute yourself, Asa, while you're not actually asking questions. Simon, you're next on the queue, but it gives you a chance to point out your important role in what we're doing.
So. Been called many things by you, Clive, but not important. Yeah, hi everyone. Simon Dennis. I'm head of commercial at Salisbury NHS Trust. We ran the 5 first geothermal pilot site procurements in partnership with NHPower. We're about to launch, as Clive's mentioned, the next tranche of hopefully around 10 trusts. The idea is that we run it as a collaborative procurement on your behalf, but obviously with your input and your requirements. That saves everyone going off and doing their own procurements. So should lead to a more streamlined process. Equally presents a more attractive opportunity for suppliers. So we don't end up telling you who you'll use. That's very much your decision. But hopefully we'll be able to give you a good range of options. And with any luck, with at least 10 trusts coming in together, we should see some good market leverage as well. I have to balance that a bit with the market is not overburdened with suppliers for deep geothermal. So we do see the same names popping up, but we can hopefully guide you through all of that anyway.
Brilliant. Well, thanks, Simon. And we've got a Q&A session, which I'll advertise as we go along, so people can see it. Okay. This is wonderful. This list keeps moving around. So Ben, you're next on my list. Do you want to just introduce yourself and what you're after?
Yeah, afternoon, Clive. Yeah, so I'm Ben. I work for the Robert Jones as the compliance and energy manager. I have joined quite a few of these roadshows over the coming weeks, but just the more information that we can get to bring, to, like, say, to our green team is always beneficial, really. It just gives us plenty of options.
Well, lovely to have you with us. It will have changed a little bit since you last had it. I hope it proves to be good use of your time, but you can tell me afterwards. Beverly's next on my list. Beverly Lagden, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sorry, on mute. Hello, I'm Bev Lagden. I'm Sustainability Manager at Dorset County Hospital in Dorset. We've had a survey done by BGS because of the potential oil in Dorset. There's been some quite positive feedback that we've got quite surety about our moderate risk there. So really interested to hear more.
Oh, okay, that's brilliant. It's nice to have somebody who's got the risk in sight. Next one's Andrew Martin.
Oh, hi. Sorry if it's me. Yeah, beg your pardon. Andrew Martin, University Hospital Dorset. Again, I've come along to a couple of roadshows. Just wanted to get a bit specific on the potential sizes of pumps and required power supplies for these, just to make sure we're not missing a trick.
All right, we'll do our best. It sounds that you might want to go a little deeper than we're able to do, but we'll do our best. Okay. Michael Black.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Michael Black. I'm the energy manager for NHS Grampian up in the northeast of Scotland. Joining today just to gather some more data to inform our decarbonisation pathway.
Oh, excellent. Well, it's nice to have you here, Michael. We've most of our surveys have stopped at the border, but we are aware of hydrogen in your neck of the woods. And there is some potential for geothermal. I think the map gives a clue about it. But anyway, it's lovely to have you here. So that's good. Next one I've got is Thomas Mitchell. You want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Tom Mitchell. I'm the Sustainability Manager for Bolton Foundation Trust, and I'm trying to use this as a resource to better understand predictions, going forward, and hopefully including that into our future estates.
Okay, well, we'll look closely, maybe pick you up when we look at the map, because I know geothermal is very good in parts of Manchester. I don't know whether it goes as far as Bolton or not. And also hydrogen's coming to Manchester, but again, I'm not quite sure it goes as far as Bolton, but we'll have a look. We'll see whether we can pick it up as we go along. Rahul, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hiya, hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Lovely. So I am Rahul. I'm an energy officer working for the RUH in Bath. I'm attending just on the energy manager's behalf, Jack Roberts. He's unfortunately on annual leave, so honestly, I'm just going to be taking as many notes as I possibly can just to inform him when he does get back. The slides that I use, I think, have been put up on the website or circulated. Oh, lovely. Okay.
Have they or have they not? If they haven't been, then I will look to do that. But anyway, take notes and do a good job explaining how wonderful getting to net zero is. If you would.
Exactly. Lovely. Thank you very much.
Cheers. Trevor Mose. Is it Mose or Mays? Sorry, my glasses need to be stronger. Trevor, you're on mute if you speak.
Yeah, I know it's right. I'm just walking down the street on my way back from somewhere else this morning, so I will be on better terms in a minute. But I am Trevor Mose. I'm the sustainability lead for Portsmouth Hospitals Trust, which is the acute trust in Portsmouth. So I'm here because I'm wanting more information about some of the alternative fuel options to support our kind of decarb plans, and I don't want to rule anything out at this stage, and I want to find out more about the the viability, the feasibility of all the other options before we just go down one sort of default pathway.
Okay, well, you're in a great area for geothermal. Are you coming to our visit to the domes at Eden?
I'm not, I'm afraid. No,
that's a
I'm
shame.
able to make that, but yeah, it sounded like a good day, but I'm not sure.
It should be a good day out. Plus, it's,
yes, indeed.
They've got the same kind of rocks you've got, so it's a pretty good.
Oh yeah, I wasn't sure from the maps, to be honest, whether it quite extended as far as us. But
no, we're not quite. I'm not quite sure either. But you're in with a better shot.
We also, I guess, you've had my Isle of Wight colleagues on the I think, on a previous
Yeah.
event, but
Yeah.
we're working very closely together as two trusts, so
Yeah,
we'll be
brilliant,
sharing
yeah.
notes as well. So
Yeah, that'd be great.
you.
Great to work with you. Damien Reed.
Hi, Clive. So I'm supposedly know a fair bit about this because you had my colleague Chris Hodgson as one of the presenters on your last workshop. I'm struggling a little bit on whether we have a financial model at this stage, because I think we're still in the testing phase, and obviously it's going through our element of the new hospital program. But any advice you can have on modelling would certainly be helpful, because we will certainly need to explain it to our boards at some stage.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, I remember discussing a financial model, because obviously you have an actual proposal from a company, so you were able to do the real numbers. I know when we discussed doing a model for you, I said we better check our model and what they're offering you line up. I'm not sure whether we did a model for you or not, but Becca can tell us at the appropriate time whether she did or not. So anyway, nice to have you along. And maybe people ask you difficult questions about why you chose to go forward and what you see as a benefit, but we'll see. Chris has already had a bit of a chat, so maybe people will ask you, maybe they won't. Louise Stewart.
Hello, Louise Stewart, Sustainability Manager at Medway Foundation Trust. Just here to listen and learn, really. We've received our model. We got sent the updated one this morning. I haven't had a chance to go through it yet.
Well, that's the purpose of today, so that's absolutely perfect. And you may have noticed on my first slide, which I will put up now, and I think about it, is the password that you need to access the site. So just going to do it. Let's go back a bit. I can. Dear me. Come on, speed up, will you? So this text in yellow is the password to the sheet that lets you into it. The first models we issued had no password, and unfortunately, people tinkered with them, and then we weren't able to answer why they gave funny answers. So we put a password on it for now, so that you know that it's secure. But that's it. So okay, welcome, and let's hope it gives you what you want. I'm trying to see whether I've missed anybody out, because the list keeps jumping. Sarah, I don't think you've introduced yourself. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Sarah Taylor. I am Head of Sustainability for Frimley NHS Trust and ICS. I have been to one of your roadshows previously, but wanted to double check in my head what we'd done before. And I'm also I'm on the new hospital programme as well.
Oh, well, that's really good, because there's a lot of synergy between what we're doing and the new hospital program. So I'm delighted that you're with us. So I hope it turns out to be good use of your time. We'll do our best from our side to make it work. Okay, is this thing going to move on? So right, we've done introductions. So what you should have is a model each for your site. We've asked for one and filled in the questionnaire, because we need the answers to the questionnaire. It's only a simple questionnaire, but we need it to do the model. So if you've done that, you should have a model. If it's not the latest version, it will be a version. Really, the model has not changed a lot, but we've tried to make it more usable. So there are a lot of usability improvements. But in the very last version that's gone out for today, and will probably be circulated more widely after today to the earlier attendees, there is an attempt to cost and the closed loop geothermal module that we've added to the roadshow since we actually went on the road. And the reason is for VGS survey only covers a certain number of the trusts, and we've been trying to find an alternative that we felt we can put in front of you that works for sites that aren't over aquifers. And we have found a technology that we believe is good. And I'm going to show you a video of it today. You will get to see that. And we also have a visit to their site next week. In fact, we have 2 visits to their site in North Yorks next week. So people come and see it. Not that there's much to see at a geothermal site, which is a way the point of the whole exercise. Anyway, you should exit this with a model and that you can use as part of your decarbonisation plan, your options and the rest of it. Should be able to see what can be changed, and the latest version is a little easier to change than the previous. You should understand the limitations of the model, because there are limits. It's had to make some generic assumptions. And you should also, in the latest version, have the impact of the closed loop geothermal option, which we didn't have before. And then I'll just briefly touch upon funding on procurement that Sir Simon explained to you a minute ago. I'll give you a little bit about that and tell you when you can hear more about it, and the support we can give you. So the procurement session that we will have a Q&A session on the 19th of June, which is a week or 10 days. We've issued invitations for trusts to join that procurement. And at the moment, I think I've seen several names of trusts who put themselves forward. We've got 10 slots. I'm not over keen to go much over 10. And depending upon how difficult the sites are and stuff, we might not even release 10. But I think it's going to be difficult to say no under 10. So this is part 3 of our initial modelling. We started with the decarbonisation plans last year. We started going through the technologies to get to net zero. We had workshops at IHEM that some of you attended. I'm not sure anybody, one or two were present there. And then we had the roadshow, with the idea was to bring us to you, which we did around the country, which had great success in 4 areas and lesser success in 3 areas. So, but we got around, and a lot of people saw us, and we saw you face to face, which was very nice. So we're now into the sort of second phase, which is trying to help trusts get to 2032, by which time we want to try and help the NHS hit its target for 2032, the 80% reduction for the estates load is what we concentrate on. We are looking to extend into smaller sites, and the closed loop geothermal helps with that. District heating helps with that. So we have the start of a solution for smaller sites. We have the geothermal procurement. We're hoping to finalise the list by the end of the month. And we've got our first meeting with councils tomorrow, where we start asking them whether they'd like to partner up with their hospitals with a view towards working on a district heating solution, possibly with geothermal, possibly with hydrogen, possibly with some other fuel. And then the hydrogen companies have come back to me and want to start engaging. So HyNet first, and we'll start to engage with the HyNet Trust. So objective 2, which is to work the 2032 targets, is now underway. And we will, when we've gone far enough with this, we'll start worrying about the 2040 requirements, which is to get rid of the last 20%. So why are we doing this? Well, you can tell me better than I can. There are lots of really good reasons. And then we're told we've got to do it. We're obliged to do it by our lords and masters. So we'll. I'm sorry if you've heard it before, but I will play Mary's take on this while we need to do this, and hopefully it'll all come through. Wait, it's just seeing have I pushed the right buttons, because I didn't do it last time.
Thank you. So that the NHS has a net zero target of 2040 and an 80% reduction by 2032 is no longer news. And since we set that target, we have developed a strategic action plan for estates on how to meet these targets. And this is the estate's net zero carbon delivery plan, which I'm hoping most of you on this call would have some knowledge of. And this document details how estates and facilities should lead the way on net zero, what needs to be done by when, who needs to take this action, and just all the reporting and accountabilities associated with that as well. Beyond that, we've also focused on what we consider to be the pillars of estate decarbonisation, which includes reduction of our energy demand, as well as preparing for low carbon heating, most of which we know that electrification will play a role in supporting that. And by so doing, thinking about that increased electricity demand and the need for improving our resilience through both on-site and off-site generation, and definitely what role our supply chain will play in this as well. So this is just an all-encompassing view, and some aspects of this are more developed than others. However, we're continuing activities to ensure that there is progress against all the actions and identify what levers we need to support the delivery of the plan and the aforementioned pillars of decarbonisation. And one of those activities is what we're doing today, which is really focusing on the decarbonisation of our heats. Next slide, please. Great. So this is a cut of data from Eric, and as you can see, heating is the biggest source of NHS building carbon emissions, and we need to understand how we transition away from this to meet our decarbonisation goals. And there are many reasons why it's hard to decarbonise heat, the main ones being the size of the challenge, and as well as the associated cost involved for moving from the traditional heating systems to things that are newer technologies and potentially more costly, as well as the energy efficiency of existing stocks, especially where we've got hard to heat and treat buildings. So these are some of the main challenges, and to address this, as stated in the estate's delivery plan, there is a requirement for heat decarbonisation plans, and this is an importance as whilst technology is important, but it's not enough. The heat decarbonisation plans plays a key role in both helping to identify both the strategic long and short-term plans, as well as the capital planning for heat decarbonisation, as well as those sets of activities that we need really. Next slide, it's really just focusing on heat decarbonisation plans. For those of you that have heard me speak before will know how much I've kind of banged on about this. But the first graphic you can see there is from Salix, and this is really all the benefits the Salix highlighted as part of their low carbon skills fund as well. But beyond this, we see heat decarbonisation plans playing a role in supporting local and national planning. And we intend to see the NHS developing these plans, not just to highlight that stage approach at the trust level, but also to support the national strategic planning for heat decarbonisation as well. An example of how this will continue to develop is the work that Greater Manchester has done. And what they've done is to develop a local area energy master plan for each of the districts. And by so doing, this has helped them address issues affecting their local energy market, both across the supply chain and allowing organizations to share or avoid or reduce grid costs, which we all know. For those of you that have done, for instance, PSDS projects, we know how much of a cost that can be. So they will, these plans will play a role nationally as well in influencing funding instruments as part of the heat and building strategy as well. And in the NHS, we continue to see it, as I mentioned, playing a key role in understanding progress towards delivery of our net zero targets, where strong advocacy and support is required, and where and how delivery vehicles can be supported. And I think lastly, what they will do is play that key role to signal technology development and market innovation, some of which we're beginning to see, for instance, with the development of the high temperature heat pumps technology themselves as well. I'll be closing with the next slide, if you don't mind going to that, and just click through it, please. Great. So this is a graphic from the heat and building strategy that I mentioned earlier, which was published in 2021. It sets out the vision for what a net zero building for the future looks like. And this view mirrors the first slide, where I introduced what we consider to be the pillars of estates decarbonisation. Clearly what it does is recognizes low carbon heat as a key component of that net zero building of the future, and highlights the key technologies that will play a role, some of which we will discuss today. And we know that some of those technologies, e.g. heat pumps and heat networks, already play a role today. And we already know which type of buildings this technology are most likely to be effective in. However, over the next few years, a diverse mix of technologies will support the existing ones and play a key role. So those are what we'll be introducing today. So I'm hoping that by the end of this webinar and workshop series, including the AHIM events, which we'll talk about later, the trust have a greater understanding of their own decarbonisation technologies and their program for your sites as well. And that's my time.
Right. I can see that you guys got ahead of me, and you're putting your comments and questions on the chat. So please continue doing that. I should have invited you to do that. I see Sarah's put something interesting up about the NHS and councils working together. I'm going to ask you to explain the ICS a bit in a second, Sarah, if you wouldn't mind. But I certainly know under the Energy Act, the councils have a responsibility, and in there is also the ability to force NHS trusts to join heat networks if they meet a certain bit. So I see you put a bit more out there, Sarah. Your ICS strategy requires the ICS to work together, looking at how we can use community estate, also applying virtual wards, beds across system. You refer to a number of published document places, the door of the NHS and local authorities. Right. Okay, that's very handy, Sarah, and I hope the other ICSs do much the same, because if we're going to get to net zero, some of these technologies require working together. So Sarah, do you want to tell us more? I see your hands up.
Yes, so because I sit across the trust and the ICS, which is a bit unusual, the estate strategy is requiring us all to look at what estate buildings we have, what we're going to sell, what we're going to keep, the value of that building and the asset, what it will take to bring it back up to reduce our backlog maintenance costs. Where are we going to start putting more healthcare into communities and not have such big trust buildings? We're also looking at how we become, in the future, either a district heating system or a network system or a hydrogen hub, so that we can feed and become the anchor institute that the NHS has always wanted to be. But every ICS has had to produce one of those reports. They're all currently going through sign off, because under the ICS, which is Integrated Care System, or which is also then governed by the ICB, which is Integrated Care Board, they all have to be signed off by every trust that it's included by. So Frimley is Berkshire and Frimley. So we all have to sign up to it, we all have to agree to it, but they all should be coming out in the next 1 to 2 months. And they should be published as well, so anybody can go onto their Integrated Care System or Board website and pull them off and find out what the ramifications for the trusts are.
Excellent. That's very helpful. Thank you for that. Okay. Anybody for any more, or do you want me to push on? Let's see. No more chat. Okay. Feel free to chat or put your hand up, and we'll put you on the mic, and you can tell us what you want to. The idea is this thing's interactive rather than you just hear me drone on. Okay, right. Okay, yes, Sarah. Okay, thanks for that, Sarah. So, and people just feel happy to interact with Sarah or the rest of us and put stuff on chat as you need to. Okay, so we've had Mary explain the central picture to us a bit. I wanted to get to the model itself. So hopefully you've got a model of one version or another. This is an extract from the very first one, and the first models are as good as the most recent models, except that they don't have the Seraphy stuff in. It's slightly harder to use. So I haven't bothered to change the actual pictures because the model works the same. So on the model, it's a spreadsheet. It is the password that I showed you right at the beginning of the slideshow, and we can put on the chat for you if you want. Okay, and it has these little yellow boxes, select boxes, where you can choose the model you're looking at. So at the moment it says includes demand reduction, because Mary told us to reduce demand first. So you can include that or exclude that as you feel appropriate. The next one you can choose geothermal or district heating or hydrogen or whatever through that and under various models. And then lastly, we've included an element that's not heat decarbonisation, but solar. And the reason is because a lot of people are putting heat pumps in and electrical loads, and the cost of that's becoming a real problem. So the solar is a way of mitigating some. I hope my computer just kicked around. I hope everybody's still there. Okay. Bloody Teams. Right. Okay. So that's the front. There is a nice big disclaimer on the front, because this is not done with slide rule accuracy. It's done as best we can. We put data from the from your questionnaires, and sometimes there'll be a percentage figure. Or we've used data from the ERIC returns, but we've had to remove the benefits or the effects of things like CHP from the model. So we've had to use not only the most up-to-date version of ERIC, but also an older version of ERIC, which allowed us to separate out the CHP. So we cannot promise to you that the model is accurate anywhere near to the pound, but it's certainly accurate to SOC type levels. So if you're putting a strategic outline case to getting to net zero, the information we give you here should be useful for that process. So we have the disclaimer as well. Then we have a version of the map, and I think I'll actually show you the map because this is a bit static, so it might be worth actually seeing a live map if I can work out where the hell it's got to. Come on, where's the map got to? Right, it's got down here. So sorry about that. It's the trouble with sharing your screen. Okay, so this is the website. You've got the link in your model, so you can do this yourself. And this is the map of the trust. It's a Google map, but it can be interfered with. And it's got the ability to select what you're interested down the side. So, you know, there's the basic map. The basic heat zones, which are geologicals for deep geothermal zones, as determined by British Geological Survey, are in this column here. And you show you what the different temperatures are that are related to them. And that's a useful guide to whether you've got a chance at geothermal energy or not. And remember, I mentioned Bolton. So on the scale of this map, Bolton looks like it's in a good zone. It's got the hydrogen zones. This is constantly evolving, but it's certainly got the high net in the northwest, and it's got the East Midlands in. It's probably a bit light on what's going on in the northeast now. I need to get those added in. We've got the hydrogen hubs, where they're coming from. We've got sites with more than an acre, or more than a hectare of excess land. Now you might say, well, why have we put that on a map? Well, those kind of trusts have the potential to possibly think about putting electrolyzers on their site, or being able to do geothermal with much less impact on the site than putting a rig close to a building would have for the installation period. We've put district heating schemes that are available to some other extent on the website. We've got the heat network pilot cities, which I'm going to come back to in a while. We've got the potential geothermal sites here, if I tick them right. So all these ones have got potential geothermal energy, and if I choose one of them, that's Trafford Hospital. So Trafford Hospital, we've got the basic information about Trafford and all the other hospitals there, where they've got a laundry, what's down there according to BGS, and whether we think there's hydrogen, bearing in mind this is a moving target. Definitely got geothermal potential there, electrical load, gas load. So there's information about the sites and there's information about the zones. And the interesting one to me are these ones, what I call the unallocated technology sites. These are the ones that don't appear on the BGS database. So BGS don't think they've got a potential, and they're not close to, not in a district heating zone, and they have no hydrogen coming to them. And you can see it covers some rather important parts of the country if you look around. So these are the ones we've been really sweating over. How do we show these hospitals a route to net zero? And that's where the closed loop geothermal might be of interest to you, because closed loop geothermal is a much simpler form of geothermal that just uses the natural heating as you go deeper aspect of the earth, and that applies to the whole country, whether in a BGS area or not. So there is a geothermal solution for these sites potentially that we could do there. So that's the map. So in the slide deck, you've got the map and you've got access to the map, and a little example of it from there. We've then got the carbon graph. Now the carbon graph shows that the grey, dark grey going light grey line there is what happens if your trust were just to stay where it is according to the data that we've got. You would green as the grid greened, but nothing else would change. And of course, you're not going to do nothing. because we're told to do something. So the very least you will do is come down the steep grey gradient here, which is to put in, do what Mary described, and put in heat pumps. Go and get yourself a PSDS application, get some money wherever you can, and put in some heat pumps at the last second. So if you just wanted to comply with the 2032 target, then that's the do minimums on our model, is that one. The targets you're meant to hit, this red line, and don't ask me why the targets have a kink in it, but they do around 2032. So there's a slight, it's not a straight line, it's got a little kink in it. And we're trying to avoid that red dot in the first place. Then there is a blue line, and the blue line's dynamic in the model depending upon what you select. So if you choose hydrogen or district heating or whatever, depending on what your temperatures are and what your site's like, that curve will change shape. But in this case, you can see some initial benefit by doing some demand side measures. And unfortunately, it doesn't take out that much carbon. But in this case, it's geothermal, and it takes out a lot of carbon, leaving a residual load to green as the electrical network greens. So that graph is a very useful summary of what the whole model is doing for you in carbon terms. There are also some tables in there. There are quite a lot of tables, but these are the important ones. The first is the current state of play. The top box here is the current state of play. So it's got the data that we've got for you as the base cost this year, amount you use. So this site uses 21 million units of heat. It uses 12.5 million units of electricity, so many tons of carbon and so on. And if you were just carrying on doing the do minimum, then that's what would happen in 2028. And then 2032, you'll do the do minimum, which is in the box below. So the do minimum scheme is in the box below. Notice you're still using 12.49 million units of electricity and 21 of heat, because you're just doing the do minimum. So you're just sticking in heat pumps. The very cheapest solution we could find to you that would get you under the goal. You'd be having to find £4.5 million, and this would be the effect on your energy. What's interesting is your 9 pence became 10 pence became 16 pence. So running heat pumps only is probably going to increase your electricity bill by 50%. So that's a very expensive way of doing it. And then we have the model table, which is the model, and you can see I've just cut and pasted out. That's why some of the lines don't line up quite neatly, because I just cut and paste bits of screenshots of a model into the screen. So you start with the site demand and the kind of figures you've had before. There's a section to do with Salix funded projects. If you're going to go for a Salix option, you can put those in there, and you can then model the impact across the scheme. And then we've got the demand side measure is here, and the generation measure is here. And depending upon which option you choose will affect the figures across here. So you see, if this scheme works the way we work at the 9.75 pence in this case, because you have to pay for the measures up here, become 10.76 become 13.76 pence. You can see the actual revenue impact and whether there's a capital impact or not. And there's also we'll show you how to include grants and all that kind of stuff. What's interesting is this little line at the bottom here, which you can almost overlook, where it says NPV, net present value, over 30 years, in this case, is £3 million. And that is a very telling and important line, because it says if this trust were to implement the solution that you've chosen here, then it would have the financial benefit of paying for itself and releasing, in today's money, 3 million quid worth of money spread over the lifetime of the installation, which is 30 years. So it's like a reverse mortgage. You'll get a saving each month and each year that if you paid now would give you £3 million. So it's almost like getting a payment of £3 million, but in chunks, like you'd won the lottery and they paid it to you in chunks. So you'll see that live when we come to do it in a second. So that's the model. Then we have a table that looks sparse, which is the generation measures. Perhaps I should have put the savings measures first, but for some reason we've put them first. So in this case, you can see that we've chosen geothermal heat in this option, and you can see the gas saving that arises from that. The cost of the measure is £20.5 million, so it's not trivial. And then the annual maintenance, O&M and life cycle cost associated with keeping that going. And that's all in the NPV figure that you've got. And there we've got a breakdown of the generation measures across the site. So we've got them. So the impact of geothermal is covered across, and the overall bottom line, then the net positive saving, the revenue cost, all summarized at the bottom here, and you can see what the total capital is and what the total revenue cost is. So that's for the geothermal or hydrogen or district heating, the bulk energy supply cost. And then we've got energy reduction measures here, which is we've got a list depending upon what you answer in the questions. But in this case, what's dropped out of the questions was some LED lighting and some air handling unit upgrades. And then, because I couldn't resist it, I showed you a demand side measure photograph from Gloucester Hospital, where they're cladding, mostly at PSDS's expense, they're cladding the tower block. And that's having a big impact on the demand side. And it's a lovely photograph because it shows you the job half done and what the difference it makes to a thing looks. So you don't just get thermal benefit from these projects. You get aesthetic benefit, you get carbon benefit, you get backlog benefit, you get maintenance savings benefits, you get all kinds of benefits by improving your site. So you'll see the model, and we'll go through these, and Becca can take you through any bit that interest you in there. I thought before I showed you the model, I would tell you how to use it. I'm just looking at the questions to see whether I need to pick any of these things. Becca, I filled in a questionnaire. Can you please send it to me? So I think that's for model. Okay, right. Okay, yeah. Okay, so Becca's going to send out your model. If anybody else hasn't filled in the questionnaire, just do it. Becca has an appointment with a sailing boat next Friday, where she's on the high seas. So if you want Becca to model something for you, you need to get her the questionnaire filled in pretty smartly, because otherwise she's going to be busy choosing which sail to use and not really interested in doing models. So Becca's a limited resource. Okay. So how to use the model? Well, the idea is that I see. Can you mute there, Paul? Paul, can you mute your microphone? Thank you, Paul. Okay, so getting a hospital net zero is very hard. This year there will be 2 hospitals that are net zero ready, i.e. they're waiting just for the electrical grid, and that'll be Bridlington and that'll be Eastbourne Hospital. So otherwise, I'm not aware of any other hospital of any size that is net zero ready. There's some that have got plans to get there, I know, but those 2 will be there. All the rest, and there are 209 that use more than 10 million units, have all got to get there. And some of them you've been beavering away for years to do this, and it's a hard iterative process. So what we've tried to do is show you how you get to net zero largely in one step. It might be a bigger step, but it can do it. And there are 4 basic options. It's the geothermal of one sort or another. It's heat pumps of one sort or another. It's qualifying geothermal installation, or it's qualifying hydrogen installations. Those are the ones we know of at the moment that are likely to get you to net zero for a big site. So we work out those options that apply to you and how they work for you. Because you can see 4 of them. You can contrast the options financially and in carbon benefit, and you can run through in your mind the backlog benefits and all the rest of it, and hopefully choose the best model for your site, which then could be the basis for starting your journey. Or maybe you choose 2 options and you start investigating, say, geothermal and district heating, which go together very nicely, or geothermal and following hydrogen until you choose which one works for you. So you can start the relevant stream with us, or any way you like, and get on with it. And hopefully it'll help you get to net zero. So that's how to use the model. Now here's an example, and again, it's this tatty couple of slides, but all I've done is cut and paste out of somebody's model. I forget whose it was, but you'll have your own model, and it's probably better to do your model. So I've used the same hospital in all 4 cases, and I've put up the summary of the 4 solutions that we've offered them in this model here. So the first column, we've for all of the model 4 of Q, I've included demand reduction measures. The first one I've chosen geothermal heat, the second one I've chosen hydrogen, and then we'll look over the page at the other 2. And in both of these I've included solar PV. And then I've put you an idea of what the hospital is. So this hospital uses 7.6 million units of electricity, 15 million units of heat, and those you can see what its costs are. So if you've run the model and this was your site, you would have these 2 and you'd have 2 more, which I'll show you in a second, and you can contrast them. So if you contrast this particular hospital's options, they could go geothermal. They have that option. Because they haven't got that option, it'll say that BGS doesn't apply to your site. That doesn't mean you can't consider the closed loop system, but it does mean the aquifer-based system that BGS use for deep geothermal probably isn't available to you. But it is for this site. And you can see the curve, and you can see how the blue curve, the demand side measure works, and how that goes down. So that's very nice. But if you look at the bottom there, it says net present value over 30 years is minus £12.7 million. So if you went to finance and say, I want to do a geothermal scheme, and they say, well, how much money is it going to cost us? You're going to say, well, it's going to cost you £13 million over the life of 30 years. So that's not exactly going to be very attractive to finance. So that's not a good option as it stands. But if you go back to look at the site parameters, the site uses 15 million units of heat a year. Now, a deep geothermal well, if you're lucky, should give you about 25 million units of heat a year. And if this hospital used 25 million units of heat a year, then that figure wouldn't be minus 12, it'd be a lot better. Or if you could sell it over the fence to a nearby university or the council or the prison or something like that, then that NPV will improve. So the model does allow you to sell the excess energy to other people. So geothermal may not be as bad for the site as it first appears. The second one I've shown you is hydrogen, and it's the same parameters. I haven't repeated them, and you can see the graph on that comes from the hydrogen. Bear in mind, hydrogen is greening. I'm not exactly sure why it goes up slightly and then goes down. I think it's to do with the process of the greening of the actual hydrogen you buy, because the hydrogen you buy is not zero carbon. It contains up to 20 grams of carbon. So it could start off being quite heavy on garden, but we've looked into it, and we'll generally start with about 10 grams of carbon, but that's still 10 grams of carbon. But notice it's got a very positive NPV. Now that NPV should be taken with a pinch of salt for several reasons. One is the reason hydrogen stacks up or even stacks up well is because it is being subsidized, like wind farms are subsidized, by making the rest of us pay more for our gas. They'll use the excess that the rest of us pay to reduce the price of your hydrogen, if you were using it, down to the price of gas. Now, there have been some weasel words, and we think the weasel words relate to CCL. So this model at the moment, the one I'm showing you, includes not only the equalization of the 2 prices, but still saving CCL, and we're now beginning to doubt that we'll get that. Well, the new model that Becca does for you makes it easier for you to exclude the CCL benefit, and then the NPV won't be 21 million, it'll be in the teens. But still, if you had a scheme that's going to save you tens of millions of pounds, it's going to be a strong contention for you if you've got access to hydrogen. So the same hospital's got 2 other options. The next one is connecting to a qualifying third-party district heating scheme. So again, for both of these, we've included the demand reductions. The left-hand one is district heating, the right-hand one is heat pumps, and we've included solar PV in both of them. So if you look at the graph for district heating, it's pretty good. It assumes the district heating is green when you start to do it. Now, if you see the blue line drops immediately. Well, it doesn't drop immediately this year. It drops immediately when you connect to the DE scheme. So if it takes you 3 years to connect it, then it will drop then. But we've shown it to you, the impact at the time you do it, it plummets, or it plummets to the level that you get out of the heating system. So that's it, and you can see that we've used. It's been a little bit difficult to get exact numbers for what the schemes are going to charge you for their heat, because obviously these are commercial bodies and we haven't made them tender. But we've used the knowledge we have of existing DE schemes, and under that it suggests you would still make an NPV benefit from joining it. So this hospital, with its 15 million units of heat, if it joined a typical, by typical, that means one that's typical of what the NHS gets now, there would be an NPV benefit to the trust worth £3 million over the 15 years. Now you will notice that I said 30 years before, so geothermal was 30 years, but hydrogen was 15 years, and district heating's 30 years. And the reason, 15 years. The reason the geothermal's 30 years is because a well lasts at least 30 years and probably 50 years. So you really want to consider it over the life of the asset, at least, because you're going to get benefit for that. Otherwise, you're not getting it into your scheme. So whereas hydrogen, the business model only runs for 15 years. Thereafter, hydrogen will be reviewed. So we can't project it beyond 15 years. And for DE schemes, at the moment, the figures we've got are for 15-year schemes. So we've done it over a 15-year scheme. And then the last option on the right-hand column of this thing, we've got a heat pump solution for the site. And you'll notice that it does drop, and it does meet the target. And you'll notice the blue line eventually then tracks the do minimum option, which is kind of reassuring, because it shows that doing heat pumps earlier, doing them later, the two line up, so it does show a good figure. But notice the NPV is minus 10 million. So this is not heat pumps that have to develop 80-degree water are expensive to run. And we've got a special section of that later in this thing, because we might be able to help you. If you've got heat pumps, we might be able to help you with it. And then I just repeat the do minimum data at the bottom there, the 16.25 pence. It's that 50% increase in the price of heat that makes heat pumps a very expensive option, unless you can do what we show you later on. Okay, so I'm just keeping an eye on the questions. Now, what I've got now is I've got, unfortunately, 3 videos. I know videos are sometimes nice and sometimes not. The nice things are you get good people, better quality people, and who can spare their time to do lots of these speaking. So you're hearing it from the horse's mouth. The disadvantage is, we sat here and we've all got other things to do, but hopefully this is very useful to you. I do apologize if the sound is a bit light. We've done our best with the sound, and I hope it will work for you. So let's listen to Corinna. She's very interesting on the subject of deep geothermal heat. So I've got three. This is the only one I've got 3 videos for. I've got BGS explaining the BGS and deep aquifer systems to you. I've got Dr. Mullen, who sat on the government advisory board and has been very helpful to us, who explains sort of an outsider's view of geothermal, and I think makes a few very good points. And then I've got a company called Kerafee, who have done some feasibility for the NHS on a closed loop geothermal scheme, which is ostensibly usable for any hospital. And because it's modular, we're not stuck with a 20 million pounds and you get 25 million units of heat type model you get from deep geothermal. You can do the closed loop systems down to about 400 kilowatts of capacity. And therefore they're cheaper and they're smaller and they take less up the site. So you've got 3 videos, and I hope you'll see the benefit of them. So we'll dive into Corinna here.
Corinna Abbasa. I'm the policy director at the British Geological Survey, and we've been looking at the opportunities for geothermal for the NHS, and I'll give you a brief overview of what I'm going to be talking about. Next slide, please. So geothermal energy we define as the energy stored in the form of heat beneath the surface of the Earth. It comes from different sources, mainly from the radioactive decay of some elements that are stored in the crust. And as such, the resource is sort of renewing itself all the time, and it cannot run out per se. Next slide, please. The energy can be, the energy is stored sort of at different depths, and so there's different systems you can use to get it out, sort of exploit it. And the graph on the right just shows you from the left to right sort of systems that extract geothermal energy from different depths. So on the left is sort of technologies that use ground source heat pumps, sort of for individual houses or small demand settlement. And then on the right hand side, the three points on the right are sort of what we consider deep geothermal energy, and that's what we've been looking at in this study. Where is there potential for the NHS to use deeper sources? Because the deeper you go, the higher the heat density, and so you can get more heat out of those deeper wells. On the left-hand side, you can see what sort of geothermal energy is being used for, and heating, district heating specifically, is one of the largest users for the temperatures that we'll find in the UK. I've marked here the two geothermal settings that we see feasible for deep geothermal energy. The one are the hot sedimentary basins or hot sedimentary aquifers, which deliver heat at about sort of 60 to 80 degrees. And then we also have radiothermal granites in the UK. They can deliver much higher heat, but they also deliver, they require deeper drilling. But if you drill deeper, you can get temperatures hot enough for power generation. It's worth saying that that's not, there's only very few settings in the UK where that might be possible. So really the target is geothermal heat to support heating of hospitals or sort of district heating networks. Next. So we've been looking at, apologies there's a mistake in it, we've been looking at the 209 NHS hospitals that Stephen just been talking about. And we found that plotting them on our map of the different geothermal targets, we find that 109 sites overlie a sedimentary basin. And on my plot, these are the green colors, blue and yellow. They are different sort of age geological basins where deep geothermal aquifers exist. There's also 3 sites on radiogenic granites. So the opportunity is great for the NHS to use geothermal as a potential decarbonisation source, but it's worth saying that there is variations within these basins that need to be explored. So it's, this is a national scale assessment. So for further details, we can provide some different plots at one of the next meetings where geothermal will be discussed specifically, but also as part of a feasibility study where we really look at the site that of interest. Next. So within this study, we've just been looking at, how much savings, what the heat demands are, how much CO2 savings compared to gas could be achieved, and what the estimated depth is that one would have to drill to reach 50 degrees. Next. And it's just going to go into the CO2 carbon emission savings. We found that for the hospitals we looked at, where they overlie a geothermal prospect, hospitals could save 1.3 to 22.7 kilotons of carbon dioxide equivalent per year. And if you install geothermal, if you install geothermal heating for the 30 top-ranking hospital sites in terms of heat demand, you could save 12% of the published emissions from the NHS England's hospital estate. Next. In order to get a geothermal project off the ground, there's a number of steps to follow, and we have just published these kind of roadmap, if you want to call it that. So there's the stages are listed here and described in the graph, and I appreciate you won't be able to read this, but we have published a paper on looking at geothermal and what the including the steps to take to develop a project. And there is a link on the next slide, please. So this paper is available sort of from the Northeast Local Enterprise Partnership website, as well as from our website at the British Geological Survey. It looks at the opportunities for geothermal, but also talks you through the individual steps that one has to take to develop a project. And that's me done.
Excellent. I won't dive into the next one just yet. Keeping an eye on the mail here. I see Andrew is definitely playing Stump the Chumps with us. You've asked about the indicative power requirements. The way we look at geothermal, Andrew, is as a COP, as though it was a heat pump. And for a geothermal system that is giving you 80-degree water, the CO coefficient of performance you might expect is between 15 and 25, typically about 18. So it would you put in 1/18 of the amount of electricity as you get heat out of it. So that's indicative for that. And for the closed loop system that we're about to look at now, the pump that cycles the water around is 4 kilowatts, and you get about 400 kilowatts out if things go well for you. So the COP of the actual well itself is more like 100. But remember, these tend to be grouped together, and then you've got a pump around the actual service as well. So the complete system COP is about the same as the geothermal. We're told about 18 or so. I see there's a request for the title and the paper. It's on the BGS website. I did circulate it with the invite, so you should all have had a copy of that paper with the invite to this meeting. So if you can't find it, then I'll send it to you. So that's the white paper. So now what's new to this roadshow is the Seraphy system. Okay, Vanessa, are you able to grab the white paper off the invite and just send it on to Beverly? If you can't, I'll do it later on. So this is a new presentation here. As such, it runs a little bit longer, and he's been a little bit salesy with it. So please ignore that, because this isn't the only company that does closed loop wells. But they've got one, and we've got a site visit next week to go and see it in North Yorkshire. And I think we've got a number of trusts going to see it. So I'll let him talk about his system, and hopefully you'll find that interesting.
Thanks, Clive. Yeah, and thanks for the opportunity. Yeah, just to add a little bit something which is a slightly different approach to the conventional open loop geothermal that has obviously been talked about in the previous session. So our approach is very much what we call a closed loop system, meaning it is totally closed. We don't go into a formation. We don't look for our subsurface aquifers and water systems. We effectively drill to heat. The geological formation around the world globally is roughly around 30 degrees a kilometre of depth, meaning that for every 30 degrees you drill, theoretically it increases by 30 degrees at least per kilometre. So we have effectively taken an oil and gas approach to this process. We have the systems deployed. We've got sites that are currently operating. We started by retrofitting existing oil and gas wells with this system to produce heat directly, which we've done. But we now have projects we're actually starting in for power generation as well, which are taking wells down to 200, 230 degrees Celsius, in some cases at 2 or 3 kilometers deep, and we're actually working with power generation. Advantages are that you don't have to do that exploration part at the front end. You drill to effectively a known depth and configure a design of a well to that known depth, specifically to reach a temperature that you want to achieve at the surface. So effectively you don't skip phase 1 and 2, but you significantly reduce phase 1 and 2 in that initial process by looking at this approach. You can get more into the deliver and operate side quicker. Next slide. So again, we try to look for off-grid solutions for our clients. We've done a number of hospital reviews recently, and you know, most of these are looking at being off-grid solutions. We also work with lots of other infrastructure, from university campuses to business park to MOD, all types of different infrastructure. But primarily here, we're focusing primarily on heat, and then looking at building in some sort of resilience for parasitic load of any operating systems that we might induce. So by adding heat pumps, by adding things like that to the system, you're obviously creating what they call a parasitic load, which has to be taken off your original load or your operating load. What we do is try to cover that in the design, meaning that the system is completely standalone off-grid. The kilowatt price you get at the end is the price you pay all the time for the duration of a 40-year agreement or whatever's put in place. Next. Despite some of the sort of the general consensus in the UK or globally even, I mean, the BGS represents roughly about 113 locations in the UK that potentially could be used for what they call open loop geothermal. We reckon it's every single location using a monobore closed loop system, so there is no restriction where you can use a monobore system. The other thing is obviously because it's monobore, it's single, it's not double loops. You can put multiples in and create multiple uses of energy in a smaller footprint. You haven't got to have a wide footprint to do that. Next slide. So this is just an example we did for a local hospital that we've done a study for recently, and you know, when we first talked to them back in 2021, they were looking at increases sort of annually going up. Basically to you know, 2030 increase in you know, a little by little. They hit their 2030 targets in 2022. Hence coming back to us for looking for a solution for energy. Next slide. So what we did is we've done a proposal for them, looked at the changing their heat and reducing their costs. We've done the study. We've actually submitted the study. And we've presented them with two basic options. One is that we fully fund the system from scratch and we deliver the energy on a sort of take or pay agreement type structure, with a possibility of, after we've retained or recovered our value proposition or investment, we can then transfer that over to what we call a BOT, like a build, operate, transfer model, back to the hospital or back to the local community type system where they have the opportunity to operate it. So again, trying to do something which adds to local content, local ESG value. The second option is obviously the pay for it upfront type option. With the first option, obviously we take the risk, we take the development risk fully, and we deliver the system, you know, to the end user for a agreed fee of energy offtake for the duration of the power purchase or heat purchase agreement, whatever that is, or both in some cases. Next slide. So the other approach with ours is very modular. So we're working with lots of different types of business cases. Some are new builds, some are old builds, some are retrofits, some are both. And what we have to do is look at what can we modularize. So we're doing some projects where we can modularize the front end, scale up and then scale down as the project goes forward over a number of years, meaning that, you know, we cater for what's going on as we build it. Next slide. And then basically, you know, the idea again is trying to reach into a bit of technology with a bit of proven knowledge base as well to enable various access to funding routes, which is what we've been quite good at through Seraphy over our sort of 3 or 4 years of development, accessing various types of funding from green bonds to various types of you know, local and overseas funding for different projects. But yeah, again, it's all about really the business case, ensuring that the business model is solid and making sure that we address them risk elements at the front end for the end user and customer.
Okay, I hope that's an interesting start to you. Now, I will show you again, but we've got the visits going on next week. If you look on the NHPower website, I can show you in a while. There is a link. You can see actually a video of them showing you the demo site and what it looks like. It doesn't look like much at all, and that's the great thing about geothermal. Once it's done, you almost don't know it's there. In fact, in this picture here, Dr. Mullen, who's a doctor, but he's also an MP for the time being, is standing next to a geothermal well in Munich. So I'll let him tell you about it. I do notice questions going on. We will collate these questions, and any that need additional answers we will answer later on. But I see Sarah's got Simon's contact details. The events are on the events page too, so there is a way to register yourself for the events on the events page if you haven't got an invite to them. Okay, so let's listen to Dr. Mullen on the subject. When we finish Dr. Mullen, then we'll actually look at the financial model. And hopefully you'll each dig yours out, and then we'll have a chance to ask questions and look at that. And we will take a break for 5 or so minutes or so, around about the half hour or so, because it is a long session, this one. Anyway, let's listen to Dr. Mann, who to me always looks to me like riffraff from the Rocky Horror Show, but there you are. I'm sure you wouldn't like that, but he does.
First of all, it's fantastic to see so many NHS trusts taking part and hearing about deep geothermal. I'm Dr. Kieran Mullen. I'm a Member of Parliament for Crewe and Nantwich, and I kind of champion the benefits of deep geothermal in Parliament. So I just wanted to come on today just really to encourage you all and just perhaps share some of the learning I've had from a review I did for the Prime Minister. So if I give you some background, I'm an MP, as I said, in Crewe and Nantwich, which is in Cheshire. And you would have seen on Karina's maps that we're above the Cheshire Basin, so we're potentially a really great location for deep geothermal. So I began exploring, why weren't we doing it, speaking in Parliament about it, speaking to ministers, and there didn't really seem to be a clear reason, perhaps just related to, a lot of our oil and gas and our drilling expertise was focused on oil and gas, as opposed to in the continent where I think they diversified perhaps more quickly than we did. And to reassure you, because I think it's important for you to understand, there are hundreds of these plants across France, Germany, the Netherlands. It's a very well understood, very well used technology. And I was very lucky to be asked by the former Prime Minister to do a review, a snapshot review of this for the country and where we might take it. And that gave me the opportunity to visit a plant in Germany. And that's me there. The picture is me at a plant in a suburb of Munich, where they started out with one borehole and one functioning deep geothermal heat plant. And now they have, I think, 4 boreholes and plans for more. And I visited the town hall, swimming baths, businesses who are all using this technology very reliably. So whilst it's in some respects new to this country, it's not a new technology. It's very well proven and very well understood. The challenges I think that we have are that I think I want to talk to you about is about public engagement, community engagement, and why this is different, why your role is really important. When I did the review and published it and engaged with local media and local communities around this technology, there isn't an understanding of it. And I think if you're considering deep geothermal, I'd love to be able to help you engage with your local MPs, your local council, your local councillors, and so that actually part of your discussions take on board engaging the community. The common question that comes up, as you probably imagine, is when you're talking about drilling these days, this is an immediate kind of public community question about drilling. And so you need to be prepared for that and think about how you're going to explain and define how deep geothermal is different to other types of drilling that people might have heard about and been concerned about. The things that I found very, very helpful was actually having visited a plant, and I'm not saying all of you got to go and head off to Europe to visit a plant, but the plant I visited was right next to a park, and the next thing along was a school, and they actually built a viewing platform for the children to see the drilling platform in operation, and they had a visitor centre there afterwards. And so it's about being able to explain that these are discrete, non-disruptive sources of heat and potentially energy. I know we're focused on heat today, and also that the other place that is piloting this stuff is the Eden project. So the Eden project is something that the public really do understand. They know those domes. I think most people have a sense that those domes and those biomes are a green, clean part of our country. And I visited the turn on of the heat plant that they've now built and is in operation, so that this winter those wonderful domes full of plants and from across the world are heated by this technology. And that also I found really helped reassure people that it was a technology that they can welcome and be really confident about, and that you can welcome and be confident about. And the learning talking to them was engaging with the community, talking to people early on. Another thing, I think, because again, Karina gave an excellent technical presentation, but I actually talked about this about the Roman baths, because actually that's most people, they're familiar with the idea of hot springs and that hot water comes up from the ground in some places, and so you're just saying that we drill down to it on in some places too. If we go on to the next slide, please. Someone was actually asked an appropriate question around funding. So the challenge for these projects in comparison to other technologies is that relatively high upfront capital cost, that drilling is not cheap, and so it's persuading and making the business case for that drilling. One of the things that I did for the research I did was ask the industry to feedback what they found helpful, and these were things that they actually get in Europe. So they have things like a feed-in tariff. So if you deliver certain geothermal projects in some European countries, you get feed-in tariff from the government. There are also kind of capital grants available, which is what we've used so far. If you've been following the chat, to advance planning for some geothermal projects for hospitals in this country, and also some insurance and things like that. But it is a challenge, and I think it's just about working with the help that you've had from people, offer from Karina and other people and CEF, to really evidence the potential, understand the potential, so that you minimize the risk and to persuade people that it's a worthy investment. But what I'm going to try and do is actually persuade at a government level and across the NHS about how we can perhaps look at some of these funding mechanisms, because grant funding is really great, but actually for these types of industries, kind of a shared risk approach is probably more effective, and that you can do through feed-in tariffs and insurance. The next slide, please. The other thing to touch on, which again Karina mentioned, is the coal mine heat. So if you're a hospital in a community that's got historic coal mines, it's mentioned in the same vein, but that's kind of a very different challenge. So the challenge for deep geothermal is that upfront cost of drilling and having to secure that money. The challenge for mine water heat is actually just understanding that resource at a local level. And so there's lower hanging fruit there in some areas, and the coal authority are the people who control all the old mine workings, so they're responsible for all this. And I worked with the coal authority. They're very happy to find partners. They're not funded to do this work, but if a partner wants to do their work in a particular area, they will work with you to try and understand what the opportunities are for you locally. Where you have to think about what the old coal mine workings haven't been touched for 50 years or more in some places, and they kind of move and the maps are not up to date, and you don't quite understand how the water flows, and so you need help to understand that. But if you do understand it, it's actually quite an accessible resource. It doesn't have that same high cost as deep geothermal. And I think the last thing I want to say is actually you would help us. We're all advocates of deep geothermal. Hospitals are a really ideal candidate for this technology, and if we can get the technology furthered in this country and have more examples of it with all of you, it will help the whole cause of deep geothermal to move forward, because you're really ideal candidates for it. Because the challenge of building a heat network and finding lots of customers is another challenge, whilst with a single customer on its own could justify a deep geothermal plant all on your own. And so that's what we're doing in my area, my local hospital. We're seeking to have a plant to operate them, and as you've seen on the chat, there are a number of hospitals that are pursuing it. So you'd be joining an already existing group, you'd be using an already proven technology, and you'd be looking into an area of renewable that the government is increasingly interested in because of its potential, and that we need to kind of all work together to push that. So I just really want to encourage you and just reiterate, if you're interested in doing it and you want some help and some advice and discussion about engaging local political structures, I'm very happy to help you to do that, and talking to individuals that MPs that I might know, and approaching councils, and also just help you think through how you come up with a comms strategy and an engagement strategy around it. So yeah, that was what I really wanted to contribute.
Okay, Dr. Mullen has done a whole lot of work with the funding, so I'll update you a bit about where he's got to in that. We can do it. So now we're going to look at the actual model itself, and Becca will get herself ready with a deep geothermal example. I would suggest that the rest of you, if you can, dig out your own model and log into it and look at your geothermal option. And then hopefully while Becca talks and shows you round her one, questions or points will arise to you from yours, which obviously be different, or most likely be different to the one she uses, and then you can discuss that. You don't have to go to Germany to see a geothermal well. Next Tuesday, we're going to a closed loop system in North Yorkshire, which we've invited people to. And on the 20th of June, we're going to the Eden project, where you can see their nice shiny well. We've even got free access into the Eden domes itself, so you can turn it into a bit of a day out after you've seen the geothermal well itself. And the people who drill the well will be there to explain it to you in both cases and how it works and let you ask questions and all the rest of it. So you don't have to go to Germany to see it. Okay, I see questions arose about the Q&A sessions. Well, the little block here says geothermal procurement with NHPower at the top is the on the 19th of June at 12 o'clock midday will be the Q&A next and probably last in June Q&A session on the geothermal procurement, if you were interested in joining it and see where it was. And on the 18th of June, we've got 2 hospitals from the first round that started a year or more ago. We've got Wythenshawe Hospital and we've got Salisbury Hospital, each explaining why they joined the original procurement and why they're pathfinders for geothermal in the NHS. They haven't finished yet because it's about a 4-year process, but they're on the way. And I think we're going to have a visit to Salisbury to see them doing a seismic study toward the end of the month. We're just waiting for the dates for that to actually do the actual study. So we're able to go there and actually see it happening. So Becca, has that given you a chance to dig out a model, and if you could talk people through it, and then just either put your hand up and we'll try and spot that. You can ask a question verbally or type it in. We'll try and pick it up, but Becca can't watch questions and talk with the spreadsheet, but we'll do our best. Okay, over to you there, Becca.
Okay, thanks, Clive. So I'm going to share my screen, and I've got hopefully you can
Oh, well, there we
see
are.
that.
On the call,
we've
so
got
great.
Royal Bolton Hospital up. And here you can see, so it's slightly just slightly tidied up from the images that Clive was showing in his presentation to make it a little bit more obvious that this box here at the top of the summary report page is where you select your scheme. And you can see over here we've got the carbon graph. So I'll go in, and at the moment we've excluded demand reduction measures and excluded solar PV. And down here you can see that gives us a positive MPV. And the reason for that is that the baseline we're comparing it to is this do nothing and then do minimum from 2032. If you change that to do nothing, you can see that MPV will drop down to 0. But do nothing is not an option, so we've got it set to that. So if we go up here and select, if we selected geothermal closed loop, it would come up with a warning to say the site is on the British Geological Database and the selection is not valid. So you can only pick one or the other. But because Bolton does sit in a BGS area for large scale geothermal, it does come up with the option for that. And when we connect that, oh great, sometimes the graph glitches and does this, and then you scroll off and you come back, or you save it down and you open it up, and
it'll sort us out that in a minute.
Yeah, so you can see if we did the heat pumps, we'd basically be getting the effect that we would get by putting them in sort of time for 2032, but we'd get it sooner. And oh, it wants to work now. Brilliant. So geothermal large scale 2028 is selected as the earliest operational start date. And then you get a drop down, and then the carbon continues to decrease along with grid carbon intensity. And then we've got an MPV here. We've selected high temperature geothermal, so our MPV is -3.5 million. We could improve that by including solar PV. It doesn't have much effect. if you could manage to get the demand reduction measures funded by the trust, that would drag the NPV into the positive. And you can play around with this. NPV sensitivity here allows you to play around a little bit with some of the options in here. The prices of heat that you're selling to the third party. So if your gas use, if your heat use is under 25 megatherms, then it automatically assumes that you're going to look to sell the additional heat to somebody nearby your site. And you can say here how much of that spare heat you think you're going to be able to get rid of. You can look at including grant funding for either your demand reduction measures or your energy generation measures. And if we click on include grant funding here, we can see that our NPV increases again. And there we've got a 10% of grant funding energy generation. So that's assuming that you're including your demand reduction measures, but they're going to be trust funded, that you're including solar PV, that you've got your geothermal large scale, and that you're hopeful that you can get 10% grant funding towards that, and that gives you a positive NPV. So you can see that by playing around with this a bit, you can try and get yourself into a situation where you've got a positive NPV, and then you can be confident, reasonably confident, that you've got a project that could attract funding. Anything you'd like to add into that, Clive?
Not particularly. That was pretty good. I mean, that's Bolton. I'm trying to visualize Bolton. I don't think there's a load immediately adjacent to the site, but I don't know where the ambulance station is fed off the thing. But those are the kind of things you need to look at to see where this worked. And then, of course, as we go through the rest of today, we'll go through the other options for not only for Bolton, but for the rest of them. I'm keeping an eye on the chat, and I haven't seen anybody raise a question, and I've kept a bit of an eye out for a hand raised. So have the rest of you, if you've managed to get an option open for yourself and you've selected the geothermal option, have you had a look at it, and do you have any questions that arise from that? Because this is a good time to do that, because when we've done this, we'll show the Seraphy or closed loop equivalent of this on another site, I think. And then we're going to have a short break just to visit the loo or anything else we want to do. So my cost 28 table is hash name, right? I don't know
Michael,
why.
Well, I'll have to go and have a look at your model, Michael, and see why
Michael,
it's doing
are you using a very old version of Excel, like 2016 or before? Because if you are, we're using a more modern lookup value, because we've got to manipulate databases here that exists in the 2016 model. So if you are using, or anybody else is getting funny results and it won't change, I'm not saying it is Michael's problem, but it might be. The one way to get around that, if you can't persuade IT to give you a modern version of Excel, is to put the model into Teams and then open it within Teams, because Teams will use the up-to-date version of Excel. So it's a hacker's way of getting an up-to-date copy of Excel, which will work. But Becca, you might want to, when you get a moment, to look at Michael's model and just see whether, because you've sent it in, and see whether it looks all right. So we work on that. Most of our database has hash name and NPV. I'm pretty sure, Thomas, that you got an old version of Excel. Are you able to check your model of Excel? Because you're going to need to use that Teams trick I told you about. Now, how you participate in a Teams call and use open a spreadsheet on Teams, I don't know, but you can send it after this call. Okay, so but Becca, when she gets a moment, we'll check those. Any hands up? What do you think? So do you want to open a Seraphy type system, i.e. one that's not on the BGS database? And let's have a look at that.
Okay, so I've also got Hinchinbrook here, and you can see here, if we click on the geothermal large scale, then we get the warning that the site is not on the British Geological database, but we can select geothermal closed loop. And you can see that this gives us, this is going to be low, almost definitely going to be low temp geothermal. So you are going to have heat pumps in as well. So your carbon savings are not as significant as they are with the open loop geothermal system. But we've tried to be cautious with the figures that we've put in based on what we've been given by Seraphy.
But it should go to zero eventually, Becca. But anyway, the heat pump.
Yeah, but I mean the initial.
Yeah, no, the initial bit. So we had somebody on from, I've forgotten who, from the National Hospital Program. So I know Seraphy did a feasibility for a hospital that was going to get a significant new hospital program addition. And the model they've looked at is to use Seraphy, I think 6 wells or something like that, and then a heat pump on top of it. And then the heat pump will top it up to 80 degrees for the old site, but the new site would be built to the new temperatures, so 45 degrees, and could probably use the heat off the well directly. So over a period of time,
right,
the heat pump could be wound down or even turned off completely or used just for hot water. So there are options there. Has anybody got a model that's got a Seraphy system in it? Oh, I put my database on OneDrive and that's worked. Well done. Well done there, Thomas. Okay. I don't know why some trusts still use the old version of Excel, but there must be a good reason for it. Do you want to explain this tab?
Yeah, I just thought whilst I've got it up on the screen, it might be good to just explain some of explain the background stuff. So the inputs tab is your energy data taken from Eric, but adjusted to assume that you don't have a CHP in, so that the models that have a CHP in, like one of the hydrogen solutions, will then calculate it back in again. And then there's some potential savings and associated costs for some energy conservation measures and some alternative heat and electricity in the case of solar PV generation measures. These are dependent on the answers that you've given in your questionnaire, and if you answered your questionnaire in the past and you can't remember what you put in, you can scroll down on this tab and have a look, and you can see here that the respondent here has said up to 75% of my site is heated from a central boiler house, and that will affect costs for new.
We're pleased to have you, but would you mind, Rachel, would you mind muting?
Great. But if there's something on here that doesn't look right, either these figures are no longer correct for your hospital, you can change the gas and electricity. But if you change it too much, you'll need to come back to us and let us know, because it will affect these figures here, and these figures come from another spreadsheet that's, it's got a lot of information in that is ours at the CEF, but we're happy to share the result of the calculations. And on the calculation spreadsheet, at first look, it looks very involved and complicated, but it's really not. If you read it from top to bottom and left to right, we've got at the top, there's some figures of what we've assumed for various professional fees and some of the, but all of the things that you change are changed on the summary report. And as you go down, on the summary report, if you click include demand reduction measures, you can see that it turns them on this tab, and then these figures feed through from the inputs tab. And anywhere where you've got yellow boxes, it is password protected. Basically, I mean, I'm sure anyone with a bit of nous will be able to hack into it if they want. But the idea is so that if you do that, you're deliberately choosing to do that, and it's on your own head if you make mistakes and you break the rest of the tool. I would save down a copy first if you're doing that. But without hacking into it, you can put in, say if you have a quote for an energy conservation measure, you can put those figures in here for yourself, and that'll feed into the rest of the calculations. And then below that, you've got energy generation measures.
Second, Becca. So we've got Alexandra and we've got Trevor, who are not seeing their graph change. Is it possible Alexandra and Trevor have the version with the error in it, with the copper, with the carbon?
I will. Thank you. This is the brilliant thing about doing this live on Teams, is that we really get to drill down into any issues with the sheets. So
so Hinchingbrooke,
Alex and Trevor,
yeah.
I'm gonna go back and look at yours, and I'll double check that, and I'll get back to you straight
Alexandra
after
is
the roadshow.
pretty confident that she's using the latest one. So Alexandra,
she's got the latest one that's been sent out, but
we'll check it, Alexandra. We might even pull yours up in a second. We'll see how we're doing.
We've got hers up now.
Oh wait, okay. So is the graph changing?
It is on mine, but I will go back and
we'll just do it. So she says, when I select closed loop geothermal and exclude solar and demand reduction values, there's no change in the carbon on my graph. Do you want to just try that and see what happens? So it's Hinchingbrooke when I select closed loop geothermal and exclude solar and demand reduction.
Yeah. Okay, so I've got change. I think there's a
yeah, mine doesn't look like that.
Okay, let me go back and thank you very much, Alex. That's really helpful. I'm going to go back and check it. I'm going to get you one out that does change properly later today.
Oh, brilliant! Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
So you should have a model that works. The other thing is, Becca goes.
Good. Mine's exactly the same as that as Trevor from Portsmouth.
Right. Okay, Trevor. Yeah, I've noted you down. I'll check yours again as well. So yeah, as Clive says, I'm around for the next week, so I'm going to be putting out a load of these models to anyone who hasn't had one, and thanks to people who filled in questionnaires while we've been talking now.
But there will be a chance to quiz Becca again, because we've booked Becca for a slot. We've called it a masterclass, i.e. you can ask hard questions, and that's for next week. So that you if you get your new model and have a play with it, you can then talk to Becca, come back and talk to Becca about it and ask questions or anything else you've got. So that's on Thursday, the 13th of June at 12 o'clock. And Becca goes sailing Friday, 5 o'clock sharp, which is setting off for sail. So we need to road test the model and ask any questions before she goes. So, sorry, Becca, I cut across you quite a lot there. If you can
not at all. All very relevant stuff. I've just got one more thing I want to show, which is down here. We've had a few people saying, well, why can't I pick the timescale of the MPV? And that's, as Clive has explained, due to the technology that you select. But if you want to compare one to another, you can scroll down to here on the calculations tab, and here it sums it over 15, 25 and 30 years. So if you want to see, obviously it's not helpful for the ones that are costed over 15 years, but if you wanted to see the difference between heat pumps at 15 years and geothermal at 15 years, you could come down and look at it here. And
well, if you did a heat pump over 30 years, then really you need to cost in the capital cost again.
Yes.
So from the NPV, you need to subtract the original capital cost, say 5 million, and that'll give you an idea of what it would be over 30 years, because we haven't life cycled kit beyond its natural life. So.
No, and that's sort of this is meant to be indicative and to give you the confidence to go forward and investigate it further on your site. It is a strategic level model, as Clive has said, but please, if you can come along to the workshop and you've had a look at your model and you want to pull it apart, then do that, or send me messages. And Alex and Trevor, I will get back to you. Trevor said, can I ask about the energy saving measures element? Yes. What would you like to ask?
It was just really how it operates. So if you can choose to include or exclude them, and when I've, for example, said I'll include it, it pulls through 2 lines. One says savings from D-Steam and one from BMS upgrades, which
I think I found somewhere on the inputs sheet, there's there seems to be a sort of defined set of conservation measures, but I can't remember either. Did I give you information that made you make some assumptions in there, or what? How does that come about?
Yeah, so that comes from we've got your gross internal floor area and we've got your energy use, and based on the answers that have been given on energy conservation measures. So for example, on this one, the answer was that 25% or less of the lighting is currently LED. So we use figures that we've got from a raft of hospitals that we've worked on and said, given the floor area and what we've achieved on other sites, we know that 75% of a hospital this size would typically save us this much and cost this much. So we can then have a figure in here for electricity day and night savings and the cost. And you can see there it's assumed how many light fittings that's covering. It's very broad brush. If you're on your site have a better understanding of what that opportunity looks like for you, you can tweak it on the calculations tab. In the energy conservation measures. So if you'd selected it, you could then say, you could basically take out you could put in adjustments in the yellow lines to affect these figures here if you wanted to make it more accurate. And again, we've got sort of a AHE fan upgrade. So it's we've tried to balance giving people a reasonably simple questionnaire that wasn't going to take them hours and hours to fill in, but that somebody with a reasonable knowledge of the estate would be able to fill in quite quickly.
So just if I carry on then, so give you an example. So the data that you've got for like LED lighting upgrade, for example, will be pulled from Eric, or I guess would have been the last 22-23 data for Eric.
No, we've looked about half the Salix schemes we've looked at, so we've got up-to-date costings, and then we've used Eric data for the square meterage. Yes, sorry, Rebecca, you carry on.
Yeah. So I'm trying to figure out where we go, because at this point in time we have now effectively implemented that already, but it won't be showing on the baseline data, will it? So am I better to try and add it here as a line of what we would do?
We've used the Eric data from 2020 to 2021 because that was the last one that split out the CHP as a separate line. So, but you can have a look at this. You can have a look at the gas and electricity here, and if that's severely out of kilter with what you're experiencing on site, let us know and we can update the background spreadsheet with those figures and update this for you. Or you can, if they're a little bit different, you can change them in here.
Yeah, because I mean, we do have CHP and complicated PFI payback that makes things really, really bloody difficult for interpreting what the numbers actually are. But okay.
Right. Well, if we can't do it on a broad brushstroke, Trevor, we can try and help you find somebody who will delve into it with you.
Okay.
But this should be a good start.
Absolutely. So thank you.
We've got a great lead in from Alex there, a question about hydrogen. So shall I hand back to you, Clive?
Well,
it's not planned, honestly.
Yeah, no, it's really good. Really good. So we're going to look through all the 4 routes to net zero, and that includes hydrogen. So we'll do that. But I'm going to declare a short break. I'll just look at this bit to see if there's any bits I haven't covered. So we've covered aquifer, and we've covered the medium depth closed loop systems. We've talked temperatures. Corinna did quite a lot of that. We've taken you through the geothermal model, and we've now noted we've got to correct some, and you've got to get updates and all the rest of it. And we've got the site visits here. So I'm going to leave this slide up. It's by my thing, it's 2:44. Can I ask you to rejoin us at about 2:50, 2:51, something like that. Take 5 minutes for quick walk around the block or a quick cup of tea or something. And then we will start with the next stage, which is, drum roll, hydrogen. So if I could, it will take 5 minutes, and then if you wouldn't mind coming back, because we would miss you if you went, and we'll then do hydrogen. So, okay. Right, see you all in a minute. Right. I hope people are coming back now and you feel a little refreshed. I want to try and finish smartly in the next hour. So we've got 3 sections to cover, but it should go faster now. We've lost Rahul, but he says he'll pick up the recording. So we'll put that on the website. So I'm about to hope I've got everybody with me and get stuck into hydrogen. Hydrogen is a moving feast in the sense that it requires a series of decisions, some of them from the government. So, and obviously we have an election now, and the government's likely to change, and some decisions may or may not change. And the way hydrogen's produced is in several different ways. A nice green way is electrolysis from using electricity, but it's quite an expensive way of making hydrogen. There is a technology which we cover on the website where you make hydrogen from natural gas on site. We have got a technology for that that might be useful to smaller sites, might be interested in that. So you can still use your existing gas supply, but the hydrogen comes out as a powder and is sold by your operator sells it for you, makes you some money, and you've got hydrogen. Or the last method, it's made from the oil and gas industry at where refineries are repurposed to produce hydrogen and take the carbon away and stick it in the earth. So it is a moving target. We're working closely with the hydrogen industry, particularly the shippers, because the way you get hydrogen to your site is generally by a pipe through a shipper. We've tended to exclude liquid hydrogen or hydrogen supplied in the back of a tanker because that's very expensive and it's better to use that kind of hydrogen for vehicles. And we have largely excluded electrolysis, but there is a website, there is a video on the website by an electrolysis provider who's looking for places they can build systems, so you can get hydrogen that way. So I've talked for a minute or two just to pick up any people who are just coming back in, so I hope people are there. So this is a slightly updated presentation by Cadent that I filmed before these shows so that you would have an up-to-date position. Then we're attending regular meetings with the various hydrogen shippers and companies to keep up to date, and the idea is we will feed it through to you. But Sally, who's very helpful, has set this up for us and has been very helpful in the process. So I'm going to play the video now, and I hope you're all ready for it. Dear me.
For the Eastern London at Cadent, and I'm going
to start her again.
Hello everyone. For the Eastern London at Cadent, and I'm going to be talking to you today about our hydrogen plans alongside Martin Shannon, who's Head of Commercial Services. Now, for those of you who don't know, Cadent is the UK's largest gas distribution network. We've got about 12 million supply points across the UK and 132,000 kilometres of pipeline. And we are delivering natural gas to customers across that region. But of course, we can't continue to burn unabated natural gas, and we are seeking to transition our network to low carbon hydrogen. So the way that we're going about that is through 5 main regional hydrogen programs, and these are focused initially on heavy industrial customers, power generators, commercial sites and health sites such as the NHS. And the UK hydrogen economy is starting to get established through the work of the industry and government, and business models are being established by DESNZ, the Department for Energy Security and Net Zero, to support hydrogen production and help bring that online in the major hydrogen production centres across the country that you can see on the map. So predominantly at the forefront of this is Teesside, the Humber, and then the High Net region, so Bay of Liverpool. And DESNZ is also establishing hydrogen transport and storage business models, and that will support the construction of the infrastructure that we'll need to deliver this. I'm going to pass to Martin now to talk about how we're going about interacting with prospective customers of these schemes.
Thank you, Sally. So, hydrogen as a fuel has many use cases, and government DESNZ has been very supportive in running industrial fuel switching trials to really demonstrate to industry how you can switch from burning natural gas to burning hydrogen. And as you can see from all of the blue chip logos on the screen, it is has many different use cases. So one of the biggest use cases for hydrogen is hydrogen to power. So Intergen, Rock Savage, these big electricity producers are going to be taking hydrogen and converting it into electricity, substituting the natural gas. It also lends itself very well to high heat, high temperature processes such as kilns. So Pilkington Glass has been using hydrogen in trials to demonstrate that you can use hydrogen to continue to generate high quality glass. Unilever, Kellogg's are also being active in taking on hydrogen trials. Hydrogen also will play its part in decarbonising airports, so both airport infrastructure, but also airport aviation, hydrogen for fuel in the longer term. So the use case for hydrogen is really quite compelling, and industry has been very supportive and as an advocate for hydrogen, because when you burn hydrogen over natural gas, you get carbon savings, and those carbon savings have a value for industry. Next slide, please, Sally. So HyNet is at the forefront in terms of building out the new national infrastructure that's going to deliver the hydrogen. So we are at the moment going through detailed design on the 124 kilometres of network. This is brand new network that's going to convey hydrogen from EET at Stanlow to those large industrial sites I mentioned. The hydrogen is going to be developed through a process called autothermal reforming, which is taking natural gas and converting it into hydrogen. And the CO2 that is captured through that process is going to be sequestered offshore and stored in depleted offshore oil wells. And that work's been carried out by E&I. Cadent at the moment has done a statutory consultation on the routing corridor, and that will subsequently lead us to doing what we call a development consent order application in due course during the latter half of 2024. EET, who's producing the hydrogen, the initial plant's going to be 350 megawatts, followed by 1,000 megawatts, has received planning permission for the first phase of production, which is hugely important. And HyNet will be commissioned by 2028. Next slide, Sally. So hospitals in the northwest that are near HyNet. So we've been working very closely with Clive, and we have now mapped out the hospitals, which are the blue crosses on the map, and they align quite neatly to a lot of the HyNet infrastructure. So we'll be able to get hydrogen to those hospitals in 2028, and there'll also be a connection process that will come off the main HyNet infrastructure to connect hospitals that are a little bit further out, very much like the natural gas connection processes we have at the moment. I'm handing now back to Sally.
Thanks, Martin. So I'm going to take you through East Coast Hydrogen, which is our hydrogen programme for the Northeast and the East Midlands. This is a collaboration with Northern Gas Networks. So Northern Gas Networks cover all of the area to the north of the River Humber, and on this map, Cadent covers to the south of the River Humber. So this is a programme that is a couple of years behind HyNet. So we've just finished our pre-front end engineering design for these pipelines, and the figures that are shown on the right hand side of the slide are a summary of the programme statistics. So starting with demand, we've received forecasts for hydrogen use from more than 160 different sites, and within those forecast, we've accounted for all the largest hospitals that are within the Cadent region. And collectively, these organisations are asking for a very large amount of hydrogen, so more than 63 terawatt hours. I won't go through all the figures, but you can see that production more than matches that demand. And there are also 4 potential large storage sites in this region for hydrogen that will enable the network to be operated and smooth out supply and demand. So hostels within this region, as I've said, have been considered within the pipeline designs, and we're keen to speak to those organisations and are mapping out exactly when during the phasing those hospitals could access hydrogen. I'm going to take you through our programme for the east of England and the southeast and London, which is capital hydrogen. Now, this is a slightly different setup. So the large-scale movement of hydrogen across this region is likely to happen through repurposed natural gas pipelines that are owned by National Gas Transmission. So there's a very large hydrogen production centre in Bagdon, which could supply the whole of London for its hydrogen needs. And National Gas are seeking to repurpose the pipelines, the solid dark blue lines on the map, by 2030. But before that time, we know that there will be clusters of hydrogen production and end use that could be connected by short sections of pipelines. And we're calling these the hotspot regions. So you can see those with a symbol that looks like a factory inside a circle. So we're looking to develop hotspots of potential supply and demand within this region. And we're interested to talk to any hospitals that are close by. Moving on to the West Midlands and then the northern part of East Anglia, we have the Hydrogen Valley programme. Now, again, the very large movements of hydrogen are likely to happen through repurposed national gas pipeline. So there's a large pipeline that feeds from Bagdon over in East Anglia right through into the West Midlands. But also there's the potential for connection up to the HyNet region, which is, as we've heard, another major hydrogen production centre. Similar to capital hydrogen, there will be hotspots of hydrogen production and end use more locally. We're very interested to talk to any hospital in this region that is close to one of the hotspots in pink that we've already identified. But equally, if there are hospitals further away that are interested in hydrogen as a fuel source, we're very keen to hear from you. We're going through an exercise of essentially trying to create hotspots and get hydrogen production and end use off the ground in a localised way across this region. So that brings me to the end of our presentation. Please do get in touch if you'd like to talk in more detail about your hospital's potential hydrogen needs.
Okay, so hydrogen is subject to a bunch of gateways we've got to get through. But it does allow, if you get hydrogen, you can still have CHP, you can still have steam. All the other technologies require you to de-steam. Now, at the moment, 3 schemes are progressing enough that we can have sensible conversations. So the right-hand one where it says starts with aim trees, the HyNet hospitals that we can have there. The ones in the middle are the East Midlands system, Sally's particular area there. And Sally's starting to talk to hospitals there. And then the Northern Gas networks are the left-handmost column. And those are all the hospitals that have potential to get hydrogen through that. Now, if you, each one has its own particular case, and we're going to follow this, and we're going to share information and as we go along. And as it becomes more and more real, then we can all share in it and decide whether we want to use it or not. If you want hydrogen and you can't wait or don't think it's going to come close enough to you, then the options are the electrolysis or the pyrolysis of gas, where you convert it to hydrogen locally, which we have some videos on the NHPower website. So hydrogen is real and it's becoming more real, And there will be a point in the not too distant future when we're able to back it as an opportunity, but we're not quite there yet. I think until the industry starts to mobilise capital, we can't really ask the NHS to mobilise capital. So at the moment, it's something to watch. Okay. So I'm not going to go on to DE yet. That's the next thing. So what we want to do now is look at the hydrogen model. So if Becca, if you could pull up a hydrogen model for us, and let's talk through it. And if you could take your options, and whilst Becca fiddles with and shows you an exemplar one, if you could drag up your own one, and that way we'll find issues or questions or anything else to try. So what are we doing? Hinchingbook again. Okay, fire away, Becca.
Yeah, well, I've got it open, so it makes sense to use this one. And hydrogen, as you said, it applies to any of the hospitals, but specifically the ones that are close to any of the predicted hydrogen networks. So it's there as an option in the tool for all of the sites. You'll have to look on the map and make a decision as to how likely it is for your location. And it's the only one that really allows you to retain steam on site. So you've got three options you can see here for hydrogen, either hydrogen boilers without CHP. Let's scroll down and see what that does to our MPV, and this is over 25 years. Or you've got hydrogen boilers with CHP, it's the whole shebang. Or hydrogen CHP only and retaining your existing gas boilers, which results in a very similar MPV, which would be to do with the spark gap, I'm thinking. But for costs for hydrogen at the moment, so the gas and hydrogen prices linked in the model. The early versions, we'd taken the CCL out of the hydrogen, but we've put that back in because we don't think it will be exempt from CCL. So we've left it, it's matched exactly at the same price as gas. Will hydrogen be the same price as gas? Well, it will have to be competitive, otherwise there's no incentive for people to swap over. And what we might see is gas increasing and subsidies from gas being used to reduce the price of hydrogen so that we do get price parity. So it isn't possible to de-link them within the model, but you can put up the gas and hydrogen price and see what that would do to it. I think that's probably
okay. And the numbers are
straightforward
yellow.
enough.
So if you think the price is going to be 20 pence per kilowatt hour, you can change it. We've used prices we've been able to get that look reasonable to us. That doesn't mean they're right. And I'm pretty sure, as Becca says, the gas price will go up and the hydrogen price will be roughly equal to that. And that's
So,
probably how it work.
Yeah, you can see the impact if gas was to be 20 pence and electricity to be 24 pence. So you can play around.
Pretty horrendous situation, yes. What will probably happen is as the gas becomes less and less used, it'll start to drop in price, and then they'll start repurposing the pipes, and you won't be able to get it at all. So I'm sure it'll go through a funny little roller coaster between now and then. Have you managed to get the models up? I see somebody's raised a question about CHP can take hydrogen mix. There has been a debate, and there is a potential that they will actually mix hydrogen into the gas supply, and that's been modeled at various different levels. And it is possible that you might get up to 20% mixed in with the natural gas, which doesn't do a lot for your carbon, but does help. But we've looked in these models at 100% hydrogen use. So we're looking at 100% hydrogen. There are a million, I see there's a question about color of hydrogen. There are a million colors of hydrogen. And because we don't want to get into what the hell each color is and exactly what it means, we've just assumed that hydrogen will meet the specification for hydrogen that attracts the business model, i.e. the price equalization. So it starts off at 20 grams and it drops. We think by the time we get to hospital, we'll be talking about 10 grams of carbon. And that's what we'll use. But the actual color and whether you believe they really will sequester the CO2 properly and they won't just leak it out or cheat us in some other way. Well, we've assumed that we can't fix everything. We've assumed the government will do its job properly, and that the hydrogen that comes to us will meet the specification and be legal. So that's what we've done. So is blue hydrogen acceptable as a net zero fuel? Well, it's the only way to get some industries to net zero. So we are going to have that. And the gas and fuel lobby is huge. They've been lobbying like mad to stay alive and have hydrogen made from natural gas and oil. So we only got to assume that it is happening. But as I say, I wouldn't invest my own money converting the site until we notice the government starts to invest their money, and preferably give us some grants, and then we can do it. So those are the questions. Anybody else want to say anything or tell us what they think of hydrogen or anything else? I'm not sure we can.
There's another question there above that one around steam from a closed loop geothermal.
Okay. They mentioned we get steam from closed loop geothermal. I would, Alexandra, I would take that with a pinch of salt. They might get steam, but the as you know, heat voltage and current and heat and flow are like related to each other. So a high temperature with no flow is not much use to you, and a high flow at low temperature isn't much use to you. You need both of them to get power. So if you were to get steam and you were to get enough of a flow, then you might well be able to use steam. But at the moment, from our research, which isn't exhaustive, but for our research and advice we've had from BGS, it's very unlikely that we will get steam from a geothermal source of any sort. But there are probably 3 hospitals that have got a decent chance. I would not assume, Alexandra, you're going to get steam. But if you join the procurement and they bid that they'll do it for you, the risk model we have is such that we'll pass the risk of delivery to the manufacturer. So if you were to join the procurement, tender this, Seraphy won it from you, so they were your supplier, and they undertook to deliver steam for you on a pay-as-you-go system, then no deliver, no pay. So, there is a route to try them out, but I would just be careful. I don't believe it, to be honest. Okay, that's the other question. Any other questions? Just keep asking them and keep typing them in.
Bev has got a hand up.
Oh, good. Fire away, Bev.
Hiya. It's really interesting. We've got a CHP on site that takes natural gas. We've got a biomethane site up the road. It's highly likely we're already using biomethane in the mix because they pump direct into the grid after tweaking it a bit. But we have also been told that our CHP could take a mix of up to 25%, I think it is, of hydrogen. It's interesting to see if we did, would it be worth us kind of putting our hat in the ring for a supply of hydrogen to be mixed in with our natural gas supply, or are we better off waiting, do you think, for it to potentially be mixed into the grid generally? And also, I just wondered what you thought about biomethane.
Okay, biomethane, we're quite sold on biomethane in the sense that it's methane collected by rotting vegetable material generally, and provided that methane will otherwise go to the sky through natural rotting of some sort or other, or you're much better off to burn it. So biomethane has got potential, and the island of Ireland is considering it in a big way. So we're certainly for biomethane if it's available. In terms of hydrogen mixes, it is possible the government will mix hydrogen in with the gas. You won't get a say, yes or no, if that's the case. It will just happen. And what you're likely to find is hydrogen production will be like gas was, and some places gas still is, where gas is interruptible. So your hydrogen, if you get offered hydrogen, it'll be on an interruptible basis, i.e. if the production shuts down or they have a problem or something like that, they'll cut off your supply. So all the normal standbys and things will be required. But But if they've got excess hydrogen, then the idea is they'll spill that into the grid. So it'll either go into storage so that they've got storage and can survive interruptions of the plant, or if the storage is full or they haven't got the storage together properly yet, they'll put it into the grid. So I don't think you need to worry about mixed hydrogen. It'll either come or it won't, and the extent to which it comes will depend really on chance is probably the easiest way to say it. If you've got a chance of biomethane, then I think you should definitely consider it. But it is a bit like burning wood in the sense that you're still burning a fossil fuel. I know it's a fossil fuel from rotting down material that otherwise would have rotted in a different way, but it is still a hydrocarbon, so it does contribute to the whole atmosphere business to some extent. So I don't know if that helps you. It's a moving target. So HyNet are at the front, and if you look on the site, on the NHPower site, is it showing it? No, it isn't showing it. Oh, it's because we're still with Becca, aren't we?
Oh, I can stop
I'll show it to
sharing.
you.
Sorry.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, it doesn't. It's not earth shaking, Becca. But on the, is it coming? Is it coming? No, it's not coming. These, you love technology. Share screen. Is it going to show my screen? Fantastic. This time we get it. So all the resources we gather, we're putting on the nhpower.net site. The whole idea is we're all pooling whatever we can. If you've got good documents, pool them. If you've got good information, pool them. If you've got good feasibilities, pool them. We'll put them where people can find them. But we have got a discussion with HyNet on the 18th of July. So HyNet are reaching a point where they want to engage with individual hospitals. Also, tomorrow I'm engaging with the first round of councils talking about district heating. So as soon as we've got that and we know what councils want to be involved in district heating, I'll cover that in a while, then we'll start to put events up. So we're sharing whatever we can. This is a sharing kind of activity, and we will keep you abreast as we can, as best we can with hydrogen. But there are various networks where you can sit in on them. So I get invited to hydrogen shows and hydrogen networking and all kinds of things. And if you like, I can dig some of those out so you can get yourself invited if you want to. Otherwise, you have to rely on us to feed in what we can. Right? Okay. Vanessa, help remind me. I must send out some of those details so people can tune into them, and I'll put the ones of general interest up on the website as best I can. So have we got everybody's questions from their spreadsheets about this? Oh, here we are. Ask another question. Don't be sorry to ask another question, Alexandra. You ask away. How do hospitals who need steam for sterilization get to net zero if they opt for geothermal? So good question, Alexandra. It depends upon the hospital itself and what you've got. But most hospitals who have used steam for sterilization put it through a heat exchanger anyway to keep it clean enough. So you might find that you do one of several things. But the most likely is you'll put in some sort of electrical generation for the sterilizers. So far the hospitals we've de-steamed, and we've de-steamed quite a lot of them. They've all gone for electric, I think, for that option. But those that are lucky enough to have hydrogen may well be able to keep their steam systems. But I wouldn't count on it too much. The problem with hydrogen is it largely comes online in the 2030s. So we've got a problem unless they give us a dispensation about meeting 2032. Some of us will have had to leap before then.
Great,
and then
thank you.
Trevor said something. I did speak with Caden about plans for hydrogen distribution across South Central England based on the 40 power station. S710 3 years. Yeah, that's aligned with what I've heard, Trevor. It's a moving target, all these hydrogen things. So we need the new government embedded in a bit, and we need various studies and the next rounds to happen. So we've got some big power stations looking to convert some to electrolysis. I can't remember whether Fawley is an electrolysis option or whether it's something else. I think it's an electrolysis option like whatnot on SAW. But we just have to watch it.
I think it was described as blue hydrogen, but I don't profess to know exactly what that means or what the method is.
Well, if any advice to me, if you want a peaceful life, don't get into colours of hydrogen because you'll just go mad. They'll go mad about it because everybody invents some slight tweak, calls it a different color, and you go mad. So what if there are no more questions? Anybody got a hand up or want to raise a question? We'll plow onwards, but don't let that stop you. Just type away and don't be sorry about it. But I think district heating is very important because I showed you a hospital who can't get geothermal unless they sell energy. So district heating is going to come hand in glove with geothermal in many cases. Also hydrogen, for instance, I can get hydrogen to Leeds, but I can only get it to Leeds if I put it into the Leeds district heating system, and the hospitals then join the district heating system. So sometimes you have to hop, skip and jump to get the benefits where you want them. So I think district heating is going to be a major factor. There is also another factor you may or not have occurred to you, and that is the NHS is not going to do any projects, capital projects that go on balance sheet at the moment because they've got no CDL, and expending millions on your balance sheet is the same as expending CDL as far as the NHS is concerned. So you need these solutions. If you've got 20 million of geothermal, you need it off balance sheet. And the easiest way to do that is to not have exclusive use of it. And that fits with both making it affordable and making it off balance sheet. So I think district heating is going to be a thing. Now, some of you are lucky enough to be near district heating schemes. There are many of them around the countryside. There are actually thousands if you use the widest definition. But really, practically to join, most of the cities have one, or a lot of the cities have one. So rather than we talking to a scheme, and this presentation will talk about it, there are district heating schemes in London, the district heating schemes in Sheffield, the district heating schemes in Leeds, in many places, there are district heating schemes that you can join now. And they've got to assure you they're going to get to net zero, and that's their job. Or you can ask a district heating developer to get involved. So I've got a developer here, this Jeremy chap, he's one of many, and he will tell you about what he's doing about district heating and give you a flavor about how it might work for you. So I'm going to play his video and we'll see what he's got to say. So I've done the normal. Have I shared the sound? I have. I think I have. And is he playing? Something funny's gone on with playing.
Thank you, Mary, and good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jeremy Bungie. I'm a director and founder of an organisation called One Energy. We're in the business of developing heat networks to decarbonise heat at scale. Unlike some heat networks that you may be familiar with, which have been predominantly for new build developments, we're looking to do this at a city scale. And I'll talk in a moment about the project we're looking at Rotherham. For those who don't know much about district heating, if we wouldn't mind going to the next slide, Clive. What is district heating? It's put it simply, it's a series of pipes that distribute hot water around a community, town, city. It is actually fairly common. There's about 14,000 networks in the UK, although many of them are small communal networks. But it's much more common across Europe. So entire cities in Europe are on district heating networks. One example that I often use is Malmö in Sweden. They built a heat network back in the 1950s, and it was originally heated via a coal-fired power station. And over time, it's moved to oil and gas, and now it's predominantly renewable heating. And I understand about 96% of all buildings across the city are connected to that network. So it demonstrates that heat networks and district heating is a scaled product and scaled solution, and we're looking to do the same thing in the UK. For those buildings connecting, they will avoid using gas boilers and replace it with a heat exchanger unit, heat interface unit. So this takes the heat from the network and puts it into the building. As I say, it's a fairly proven technology. Clive, you wouldn't mind going to the next slide. Heat networks can take heat from many sources, and that's how Malmö, as I say, has managed to decarbonise over time. But over time, we have to move away from gas heating for all buildings across the UK. So all fossil fuel heating needs to be gone by 2050. If you don't put a heat network in, there are alternatives. So it could be an individual building level heat pump, or it could be hydrogen piped through the gas network, for example. Both of these, however, can and do feed into heat networks. So rather than a building level solution, the heat network can do it as a central point and take heat from these different sources and distribute it around a much wider area. The way we look at this is as buildings move away from gas heating over the next 10 or 15 years, towns and cities need to make a decision. Are they going to be heat network cities, or are they going to be heat pump cities? The reason I say that is because the default position will be for buildings to move to a heat pump. Unless there is hydrogen in the gas network, the default position will be a heat pump solution. As we move down that route, as the more buildings connect to use a heat pump, the ability to roll out a heat network diminishes, because it's the demand, it's the ability to aggregate demand that makes a heat network possible. And let me just talk you through an example of a project we're doing in Rotherham, if you wouldn't mind, Clive. So this is an example of the project we're looking at in Rotherham. But before I do that, I'll just explain a little bit how this can work for the NHS. So a heat network does not need to be developed by an individual hospital or NHS trust. The hospital demand, however, can act as a catalyst for a much wider heat network, and it's exactly what we're doing in Rotherham and other cities across the UK. There's a significant amount of grant funding available in the UK for rolling out of these heat networks, and by connecting to a much larger network, significant savings can be achieved. So what I'm saying is actually you don't need to do this yourself. There are organisations like ourselves that can develop wider heat networks to make it much more cost effective for you to decarbonise heat. So the Rotherham network, give you a flavour of that. We're taking waste heat from a local biomass power station. This is actually end of process heat, so we're not affecting their plant at all. We're just taking heat that would otherwise go through their chimney, and we're putting that through a heat pump to raise the temperatures up to 85 degrees. We're then distributing it to initially phase one, it'll be 30 buildings, including the hospital. There's approximately 10 kilometres of heat network we're putting in the ground, and we've got buy-in from the council and all the major off-takers. We have received £25 million of grant funding from BEIS, or DESNES as it is now, to build this network. It's £55 million in total for this phase one, and One Energy is putting in the remainder of the capital. We believe heat networks are the most cost-effective way of decarbonising heat at a building level. The capital cost of connecting to the building, so there's a connection charge that is payable by customers, but it's 64% lower than the alternative individual building level heat pump. So we think it's pretty compelling, that commercial argument, financial argument. And then year on year, it's 30 to 40% cheaper than that low carbon counterfactual, the air source heat pump or heat pump at a building level. This network will deliver initially 75% carbon savings compared to a gas boiler system. And over time, we are looking to move it to zero carbon as we replace gas heating, because we do have some gas boiler heat for peak, as we replace that with alternative sources. So Clive, we move on to the next slide. What we need to deliver a heat network is support from off-takers. If there is demand for heat, large demand for heat, and this is where the NHS and hospitals can come in, because often the demand at a hospital is significant, and as I say, can act as a catalyst for a much wider heat network. What we need, therefore, is access to some data. So your demand data, what is your current heating demand? Once we have that, we can look at opportunities to connect up other buildings in the wider area. Often universities, colleges, council buildings will be the starting point, and we can develop a heat network over many kilometers. So if you're 2, 3, 4, 5 kilometers outside of a town, that doesn't stop it being feasible for a heat network. What we would do is work with you to see if that's feasible. Taking your data, we'll even do building surveys to determine how compatible your buildings are with heat networks, and then we'll engage on a grant application to try and get funding to develop that network. Overall, we try to make it easy for all customers to connect and engage with a heat network. We do believe this approach, working with an organization like ourselves, will allow you to deliver decarbonized heat at scale and in the most cost-effective way, and avoid the need of having all the skills in-house to do it yourselves.
Okay, look at the question.
My name is Jeremy Bungay.
No. I see Beverly, you interested. We can, Vanessa will put you in touch with Jeremy and include Hemico as well, Vanessa, so they've just got at least 2 to talk to. There are plenty others who will just share that around and you can talk to it. District heating, Becca's going to bring the model up shortly. We've got only half an hour left, so I want to get a wiggle on. She'll show the model in a second. But it's very important for balance sheet, for to sell carbon, and also how do we do mental health, community hospital, smaller sites from geothermal. There might be a chance for the closed loop system to work, but otherwise, can we put them on a heat network and get them there? The Energy Act has the pilot cities in it, and NHS trusts can be compelled to join those systems if the government deems that should be the case. We're talking to the councils, and we're going, depending upon what response we get, we'll come back and bring that to the hospitals and say, you know, your council is interested in talking to you. Do you want us to facilitate a conversation, or do you just want the email address? That's up to you. So we'll invite you in pilots, and we'll look to set up partnerships where it's helpful to you, so we can do that. Becca, do you want to pull up a sheet? Just quickly do that, and then we'll get on to heat pumps.
So Sharon Bolton again, and I've gone to connect to third-party district heating in the scheme selection. I'll just take out the grant funding selection so we're not confusing the waters. And here you can see on this one, there's an MPV over 15 years, as you said, Clive, of just under 1.5 million. And my carbon graph has decided to play.
It's mucking about, is it? We have absolutely no idea why the carbon graph does that. It's something internal to Excel, but it does come right.
Oh, so that, yeah, if you go out of the selection that you've made and back onto it. And this has got, it's down as an earliest operational start date of 2026. Obviously, that would require some really prompt activity on the trust's behalf.
Well, it's not possible for Bolton, so don't get your hopes up. But whenever it does happen, that blue line will come down.
Yeah, so you can move the line along to suit when you think you'd be able to get it. And if it's something you're interested in looking into, you'd be looking at developing a specific model based on quotes from a scheme close to your site. I don't know that there's much more I can add in without repeating myself on the.
Well, have everybody got their models? Has anybody played with them and just checked that makes some sense. We can't promise what your district heating company will charge you. We've had to use the information we've got with the district heating schemes we've been involved in. So we've been involved in some citywide ones, particularly in Manchester, and then a number of hospital ones from the north of Scotland right down to the south. We've had a sprinkling of them around. They've all used different models, and we've had to use our best to come up with an average price. You might well want to tinker with the prices that you get offered. Yes.
Yeah, so there's a district heating fixed charge in the MPV analysis and percentage of peak heat provided by district heat. So you could, you could play around with them.
So you may get charged a connection charge and then a price per kilowatt hour. It depends on what you strike. The Energy Act has an awful lot to say about protecting people against price rises and the like, because they're thinking of individual Mrs. Jones in her house not being ripped off. That probably wouldn't apply to the NHS, because you'll sign an actual commercial negotiated deal with the providers. We're big enough to do that, so that you'll get the terms that you agree in your contract. And a lot of that protection will just be covered by contractual law. Okay, you've had discussions with DC and Dutchy. I don't know the companies, but if you've got any information to share, Beverly, we'd happily have a look at it and add it to our little database of things. We're certainly looking to talk to district heating companies later in the year. So,
Yes, certainly. We just have to check on confidentiality because we've got quite a detailed report. No. But yeah, happy to share our process.
Yeah. Michael's got your hand up. Michael, do you want to add something?
Yes, where you've seen sites connected district heat networks, particularly inpatient hospitals, what sort of resilience measures do they put in place?
It has varied from site to site, but I haven't yet seen a hospital that hasn't retained some boiler plant of their own. I haven't seen one yet. So, I would make the assumption that you keep some plant and some liquid fuel storage and the rest, because I would. That's the last thing was a cold hospital.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I just wonder what they do for a new build.
Well, what they're doing is they're offering to build a power station on or near the site. That's what Rotherham is. They included a big discussion about putting it on. Rotherham is actually in some difficulty at the moment, because for most district heating schemes and geothermal, you need to get your return temperatures down. And Rotherham is struggling to get its return temperatures down. So at the moment, the numbers aren't quite adding up. So we're busy trying to deal with that at the moment. But and that's where Salix works and PSDS grants and all that stuff. Anything else you can get your hands on is very useful, because your site needs to be ready. You can't just join to a district heating thing and assume it's going to work. You need to make sure you're ready for it. But thanks for that, Michael. Anybody else got anything? I'm just trying to hustle a bit, just because I want to send you away on time, if that's possible. Okay, so what I'm going to do, if I've got Becca back, so I'm going to, oh dear, I hope I'm going to do it. Why can I not persuade it to share screen? Okay. Oh, hooray. Okay, so we got the presentation back. And wait to go to the next slide. Thank you. Right. So we're talking to councils. Somebody asked a question, which councils are we talking to? We've started with the pilot zones in the Energy Act, and then we've added on others that are interested in joining the geothermal procurement. So those are the councils we're talking to. We also, in the Energy Act, they've assigned commercial firms to help the different groups, AECOM, Anthesis, and the rest. So we are talking to them to some extent as well. And anybody else, there's no reason why, if you're not in any of those areas, you can't have a district heating scheme. It's just those are the ones that are in the pilot zones. So we're definitely talking to those. I don't know an awful lot about councils and how they think about this. So as I find out, I'll share that and we'll talk to more councils. But for instance, if Swindon comes back, then we will, and says they want to work, then we'll talk to the hospitals close enough to Swindon or Hampshire or Cornwall or any of those and say, do you want to work with the hospital? So we're trying to facilitate this as best we can. Okay. So they're the pilot cities on the map. We've shown them and we're busy working on this. So given the time, I'm not going to go through it too much, but you will be invited to further events if we can get people interested in your schemes. Or if you want to bring one to us and say you've been approached by the council but would like help, perhaps you want to join a geothermal in conjunction with your council. So for instance, Stoke-on-Trent has dealt with the council, a DE scheme. I believe it's stalled at the moment. Sorry, a geothermal scheme. I believe it's stalled. I may not be up to date. But if they wanted to talk to us about trying to make it work, we have, Dr. Mullen's done a lot of work with how we fund these things. It might be very helpful to that project. Okay, so now we have a presentation on heat pumps, but I'm not going to show it because it's even harder to hear than the other ones. I've rather got the slides, and I'll do a rather inferior job to Andy explaining them to you, but I'll explain those to you now. So we'll jump past that. So heat pumps, you all know, are viable solutions because we've put lots of them in the NHS already. It's readily available. You can get them in different sizes. It does work. It gets you to electric, provided you've got HV supply to sort it. And there are ways of doing it for different temperature ranges. You can use it with mine water. You can use them to generate cooling and heat. They're a flexible tool, but integration with your asset is very critical. And also they're expensive to run. So these slides are really not meant to teach you about heat pumps, but to give you a bit of a leg up about how you make it work economically within your system. So that's what I'm going to try and do in Andy's place. Andy's video is on the website, so you can listen to him say it if you speak about it. So if we can change slides, my phone's going mad. I'll just ignore that. So what Mary told us, we must deal with consumption, utilization first. That's the first thing. Then we look to reducing temperatures and better efficiency of our plants. And then we look to how we generate it. So we should go through a phase. And that's what the net zero building approach is about. It drives the cost down. It means you don't oversize the plant you put in and reduces the running temperatures. So it needs to follow that kind of route. And what we're suggesting is if you've got a hospital and you're going to put heat pumps into it, that you're probably not going to do all the plant rooms. Here we put a notional 6, or Andy's put 6. You're probably not going to do them all at once. If you're lucky, you'll do them all sequentially, or you might find you get a new building and you do effectively A, B, and C become low temperature and get fed a different way, and D, E, and F are high temperature, or whatever it is. And we've called that interface between the future lower temperatures that you get very efficiently out of heat pumps, and the higher temperatures that you can get out of heat pumps, but normally cascade heat pumps, where you want higher temperatures. Then we use what we call a tempering solution. So the idea is you go and convert plant room A, if that's what you're going to do. You take out the heat exchangers in your air handling unit, and you replace them with ones that are capable of doing 40, 45 degrees. But you run them at 80 degrees. There's nothing to stop you doing that. And that allows you to convert and run at higher temperatures until you reach a point where you can start to reduce the temperatures, if not wholesale, then in part. And if you put that with controls, you can end up with quite a nice system that's iterative and can be done in stages and get you to either a brand new hospital estate if you're kind enough to get one, and how you convert them. So I see there's a question about Huntington. I'll come back to that in a minute. So here's a typical cascade system, and I've been involved peripherally on quite a lot of these. And if we, so these are rounds. You can air source heat pump or some other supplier of low grade heat is the first stage. Here we call air source heat pump. So it uses the air to convert, and then it produces 40, 45 degree water, something like that. Then you put it into a water source heat pump, and you then produce 80 degree water. The problem with that is you've got to power both heat pumps, and you might get a coefficient of performance, a seasonal coefficient of performance, because you want to know what it's like over the year of, say, 2, which means you put in 1 unit of electricity and get 2 units of heat out of it. And that will work, and it'll give you the temperatures, and it'll be fine, and it'll decarbonize with the grid. The main issue will be the cost of running it. So that's probably the major focus here. So if you use the model where you use this tempering solution, where you use a stage approach to do it, then you could, as you convert plant from A and plant from B to low temperature, then you can reconnect them to the low temperature hot water system, take them off at 80 degrees when you're ready, put them on the 40, 45 degree water system, where because you put nice new heat exchangers in it, and then they no longer put load on the water source heat pump. And if you keep doing that, you'll reach a point where the only thing you're supplying off the water source heat pump is domestic hot water, because it remains the premier way to kill off Legionella. So, and in that situation, you have a chance of getting an SCOP of 4. It will still decarbonize with the grid, and you have to live with this hybrid system. But as a SCOP 4, it's going to wash its face, which is what we really need if we're going to get finance to back us. So this is a graph that Andy's done for us, and what he's plotted the cost of energy, the total cost of energy, and he's looked at the difference between gas and heat pump energy as the COP improves. So if you have a COP of 1, and for this moderate size hospital, you run a heat pump on a COP of 1, which would be pretty horrendous, you're going to run into £1.5 million worth of extra cost compared to running it on gas. If you go to a COP of about 2, which is what you got out of that stacked system, then you're going to expend maybe £400,000 a year more than you would have done with gas. So it's going to be a big swallow. 400,000 a year buys you a lot of dressings or a fair number of nurses or other things that help our patients better. But if you can get the seasonal COP up to about 3.5, then you break even, and above about 3.5, and certainly at 4, you're starting to save money compared to the old way of running on gas. So it can, in fact, come cheaper. And my house, I know is a very poor example, but that's run since I put the heat pump in it at about 4. So it's actually been slightly cheaper, potentially, than gas, if my domestic and spark gap is the same as the NHS, and I can't offhand tell you where it is. But certainly I get 4, but I run my house at 45 degrees, so there you are. So assuming gas at 5p, electric is at 20p, and at 10 million unit side, the break-even point is about 3.5. So that's what you want to do, is be looking to move your system onto low temperature so it works. So I don't want to say much more about heat pumps because I'm really running short of time. Do you want to just bring up the model, Becca, and just show the do minimum again, just remind them that it's there, and then quickly do the fuller solution that's on your sheet.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, we're back with Bolton, far away.
So we're going to go back to, so there's no selection, and this MPV, as we said before, is based on the do nothing and then do minimum from 2032. So that's assuming that by 2032 you will have been forced down a heat pump route anyway. However, you can select the heat pump option, and that assumes that you will be rushing to get that in from now or as soon as possible. And you can see
also,
that gives us,
we've included de-steaming if necessary, so it's more expensive than the do minimum option.
yes. So you can see our MPV there is extremely low. And it gives us this sharp drop in the short term, and then again it follows down the route of reduction in grid emissions. and we can add in the solar PV and the heat demand reduction measures to get it back down to that, the business as usual, the de minimum option shown in the dark grey there.
So has everybody got a model, and have you had a look at it? I see, Alexander, you asked about Huntingdon and district heating. I'm just speaking to that question while everybody looks at the model. Would Huntingdon be included? I'm not aware of the Huntingdon opportunity, Alexandra, but if you have any contacts for me, I'll get them involved. But no, I'm not aware of it.
Yeah, great. I'll send you some, Clive.
Brilliant. Okay, and we'll try and get them involved, and with the view of helping you. I assume it's your local.
Yes, that's where
council, yeah.
Hinchinbrook is.
Yeah, so I mean, if you're making great weather with them and going on great guns and you're very happy, just carry on. But if you think we can bring any help, and that might be as simple as funding or helping you with some of the documentation. I've had a message from UHD this morning. They're sharing their business case template for geothermal with the group, so that's come through. So we're all sharing stuff. So we'll make that available to you, and we'll share anything. If you've got something to share, we'll happily share it. Okay, has anybody, no, we know we've met the odd problem with the model so far. Has anybody got problems with their heat pump models or comments or questions? Okay, so I won't spend any more time on it because I'm now panicking a bit about sending you all off at 4 o'clock issue as close as I can. So I'll move on. Remember, we've got the master class, so we've got Becca for another week before she goes sailing, and hopefully you won't drown herself or do anything awful like that. So she can still be around to ask her questions when she gets back. But we've done heat pumps, we've talked about HV, we've talked about how we do it, we've talked about the financial model, so nothing more about heat pumps. How do we pay for it? Well, it doesn't have to be CDL or NHS capital. There's obviously PSDS, and there's going to be a round 4, and the round 4 is no longer going to be a hair trigger. I put the text off the website there. Funding's prioritised for projects where the most direct carbon emissions will be saved. So we're moving to a quality of scheme approach, so it'll be interesting to see how that works. Then for district heating, the heat network grants, that could also apply to geothermal. So there are grants that can help the process. And then Dr. Mullen has worked with the finance director, well, he's now chief executive of the Carbon Energy Fund, and they've gone off to see Treasury and all kinds of people, the UK Investment Bank. And I'm not at liberty to share the letter from Lord Markham, but we have support from all kinds of people, from the Department of Health, from the NHS, from UKIB and from Treasury, telling us how to do this and how it works. And we've had to get match funding, and I believe that David Mackey has got that. Now, David Mackey is going to be available for a financing discussion Friday week. I haven't advertised it yet because he's been a bit coy about giving me his slides, but I believe he's going to do that. So you will get an invite if you want to attend it to an hour long, or probably be a bit less than an hour, next Friday week, to hear finance if that's of interest to you. So like everything else, we're sharing everything we know about everything. I will point out to you that management of energy sources is going to become a much bigger issue than it is now. It might be obvious to you, but controls, we've all got BEMS, but sometimes they don't work so well. That's going to become very important. And then, geothermal is not sized to your full load, so it can't supply your full load. So you need to have a way of generating heat when you need to top up, and that needs to be storage, or it needs to be some other heat source. The carbon intensity of fuel varies. We've got ways of running CHP engines so they don't generate carbon, but that's becoming trickier and trickier. Heat recovery can vary with the time of the year. Solar is only in the day. Fuels come and go, mixed charge and all the rest of it. And as I said, storage of energy. These are going to become big issues for trust, and we're working on that to try and be ready for when you need help on those things. But I'm pretty sure that there's going to be a need for some kind of centralized bureau that we can all share that helps us with these things. What NHPower is not very big. We rely on volunteers. We're not allowed to be commercial or anything, but we're working on funding. You will see the geothermal procurement starting now. So people who want to use the funding can come to the talk and listen and see whether that's for them. If you're interested in the geothermal procurement, you can join now or join later if we manage to do another one. If we start these schemes, we'll help you with those, talking to people, help you share information. We try and bring parties in or share suppliers. We're trying to produce common documentation and processes, and anything you're prepared to share, we'll share. We'll try and help you, but you will need, if you're going to do, for instance, join the geothermal, you're going to need some technical assistance. And NHPower does not have project managers or engineers of its own, because I rely on volunteers. Becca comes to us, is given services supplied to us by the Carbon Energy Fund, as it turns out in this case. But we've had BGS give us free things. We've had district heating companies do us presentations and do us shows. Seraphi are producing visits we can go to. The Eden Project give us free tickets. Anything we can get, we're sharing and we're doing. Okay. If you look on the website, already flashed up, these talks are coming. So if you look at these next week, we've got Seraphi visits, 2 visits, one in the morning, afternoon. I think they're full, but if you want to come and you can get to North Yorkshire, talk to Vanessa and she'll see what she can do for you. I'll be at NHS Confed Expo Wednesday and 12th of June and Thursday, Wednesday and Thursday with Simon Dennis. So if you're there or somebody from your trust there and want to talk procurement or anything else, we'll be there. We've got Becca for one last before she goes sailing on the Teams Masterclass on the 13th of June. We've got a Q&A session with Withenshaw and Salisbury Trust, where they talk about why they joined the initial procurement a year or so ago. That's on Friday. Their contractor will be there too, so you can ask them questions. That's on Tuesday, the 18th of June. The Q&A on the 14th of June is the general procurement Q&A. Sorry, I mixed those two up when I spoke. So if you want to hear the presentation about the geothermal procurement and ask questions, why it's a good idea and what do you think about it, what it costs and how much resource you need, I'll attempt to answer all of those at that talk. And then we've got another one of those on the 19th of June. So there are talks on that. And then we've got the Eden Project. We've got free tickets for that, free tickets to the Seraphi one, which includes a pub lunch, I think. I'm not sure the Eden Project includes probably some sandwiches and a free ticket to the domes. A visit to Salisbury Hospital to see them do a seismic survey. So you'll see one where they effectively do ultrasound on the ground. So if you've ever had a baby ultrasounded, you can see the seismic equivalent of that. It's now 3:58. So it's just check whether I've got anything else I need to cover. So you can join the procurement. District heating partnerships, we're starting in June to try and set those up with councils. And Cabinet Office have dealt us a blow on solar. We were trying to buy solar and ship it through the network to Trust. We've met a bit of a blockage at the moment with that because Cabinet Office has said we've got to go through them, and then they're in Perda, so we're stuck there. And I will share hydrogen as it goes along. And that's it. So I think I have finished at 1 minute to 4. It doesn't mean I'm going to disappear, so I can answer questions. But if you need to leave at 4 because that's what we booked you for, then thank you for coming. And please join anything else we can help you with. But I'm here, and Becca's here for a little while to ask questions if anybody's got any. I see nothing in the chat. Becca, I don't think you've noticed anything. If anybody want to put their hand up or ask any questions, I can see people already have running to their next meetings.
No, I haven't got any questions, but just to say thank you to you both. That was really, really useful. Thank you for your time.
Oh, well, it's lovely to speak to you, Alexandra, and everybody else. Thank you for that. I hope your meeting went well with Seraphi. If you've got any observations you'd like to feedback privately, do that. You're welcome to do that. Okay, so thanks, people. And thank you, Becca, Becca's burnt the midnight oil on your models. She really has. So thanks to Becca for her work and Vanessa for doing a lot of the glue holding this thing together for us. So, okay, I'm going to turn the recording off and hopefully we'll turn that into we'll extract something from that might be worth sharing for the people that have to leave early. Okay. So thank you all, and I'll see you next time.
Thank you so much.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye then. Bye then. Cheers, Becca. Cheers, Vanessa. Okay. So, Becca, we'll next talk early next week. Is that right?